Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another Wide Awake Horror video. I'm Nemo, the editor. I just want to say, if you guys enjoy these stories, then please smash that like button. And if you're new here, why not join the family and hit that subscribe button? Let us know down in the comments what you think of these stories, which one was your favourite, and anything else you guys want to hear on this channel. For now, enjoy these new stories.
I knew something was off before I even met her, but not in a big dramatic way. It was more like that small itch in your brain you ignore because everything else seems normal. Her profile wasn't weird. That's what made it worse. Just regular photos. Mirror selfie, one at a beach, one blurry one at night with friends. Nothing creepy. Nothing edited weird. She looked like someone you pass on the street and forget 5 seconds later. I almost swiped past her. Her name was Erin. Age matched mine. Bio was basic. Said she liked late drives, bad horror movies, and collecting random junk from charity shops. I didn't think twice. We matched, sent a few messages back and forth, nothing special. She typed normal, not overly fast, not dried either, just normal. But there was this one thing I noticed after a bit. I couldn't figure out why her face felt familiar. Not like I knew her, just like I'd seen her somewhere before. I even scrolled through her pictures again to check if we had mutual friends or if she tagged somewhere I recognized. Nothing. I told myself I was just overthinking. We planned to meet after a couple days. She suggested this place just outside town, near an old marina that barely anyone goes to anymore. Not exactly sketchy, just kind of forgotten. I've been there once or twice growing up, but it's the kind of place people stop going to after a while. That should have been my second morning. I got there a bit early. It was one of those gray evenings where everything looks washed out. The water looked flat and heavy, like it wasn't moving at all. There were a few broken benches and one working street light that kept flickering every few seconds. I remember checking my phone to look at her profile again while I waited. That's when it hit me a little harder. Her face looked different. Not completely. It was still her same girl, same photos. But something about her eyes looked slightly off compared to how I remembered. I actually thought maybe she updated her pictures and I just didn't notice. I refreshed the app. Same photos. I shrugged it off again. Then she showed up. I saw her walking from the far end of the marina, coming out from behind the old boat sheds. At first, I didn't even register it was her. Just some girl heading in my direction. But the closer she got, the more something in my chest tightened. Because I knew that face. Not Erin. Not the profile. I knew that face from somewhere else. When she got close enough, I realized exactly where. My ex, the one I dated 2 years ago. Same eyes, same nose, same slight uneven smile, even the way her hair sat on one side like it never stayed in place. I actually felt my stomach drop, like physically drop. I almost walked away right there, but I didn't. I just stood there like an idiot trying to process it. There's looking similar, and then there's this. This was exact, like someone copied and pasted person. Then she got even closer, and it got worse. There was a small scar just under her lip. Faint, but visible when you knew it was there. My ex had that exact same scar. She got it from falling off her bike when she was younger. She told me that months into the relationship. I never told anyone else that. Not even my closest friends. Erin stopped a few feet away from me, smiling like everything was normal. I didn't say anything at first. I couldn't. She looked at me like she was waiting for me to recognize her properly. And that's when something shifted again. Her face changed. Not in a dramatic way. It didn't morph or glitch or anything like that. It was more like my brain couldn't lock onto one version of her. 1 second she looked exactly like that ex. The next second, she looked like a different one. I've had a few relationships. Not a crazy amount, but enough. And somehow standing there, I could see all of them in her face. Different angles, different expressions, small details lining up perfectly. One had a tiny mark near her eyebrow. Another had a slightly crooked tooth. Another had a faint line on her chin. They were all there. All of them. I took a step back without even realizing it. She didn't react. She just kept looking at me like she knew exactly what was going through my head. We started walking along the marina after that. I don't even remember deciding to walk. It just happened, like my body was on autopilot, and I was just watching it happen. I kept glancing at her. Every time I did, something else lined up. Her hands looked like someone else's I remembered. The way she walked matched another. Even the way she tilted her head when looking at the water matched someone I hadn't thought about in years. It felt wrong in a way I can't fully explain. Not scary in a loud way, just deeply wrong. At some point, I noticed something that made everything snap into place. There was a scar on her wrist. Thin, pale, almost hidden unless the light hit it right. I knew that scar, but not from any of my exes. It was mine. I got it when I was a kid, climbing over a broken fence behind my old house. I caught my wrist on a jagged piece of metal. It wasn't a big injury, but it left a mark that never fully faded. I had that scar. No one else should. I stopped walking. She kept going for a couple steps before stopping too. Then she turned back to me slowly. Still no words. Just that same calm expression. That's when I started putting things together in a way I didn't want to. Every relationship I've had ended the same way. Not dramatic, not explosive, just off. Like the person slowly becoming someone else. Small things changing, habits shifting, memories not lining up properly. I always blamed it on people just changing over time. But standing there looking at her, I started thinking something else. What if they didn't change? What if they were all her? Not at the same time, one after another. Same person, different face each time. Learning, adjusting, getting closer every time. And now she didn't even need to hide it properly anymore, because I wouldn't be able to prove it anyway. I backed away again, further this time. She didn't follow. She just stood there, watching me like she was waiting to see what I'd do. And the worst part is, I felt something pulling me to stay. Not in a good way, not like attraction. More like recognition. Like some part of me already knew her longer than I should. I turned and walked away. I didn't run. I didn't look back. I just walked straight to my car, got in, and left. I unmasked her before I even got home. Deleted the app too. I tried to convince myself it was just stress or my brain messing with me. That worked for a while. Until a few days later. I was going through old photos on my phone, clearing space. And I found pictures from one of my past relationships. We were at a park, sunny day, nothing weird. But when I zoomed in on her face, I noticed something I swear wasn't there before. A faint scar under her lip. Exactly the same place. Exactly the same shape. I checked other photos. Same thing. Then I checked another ex. Same scar. Different pictures, different years.
Hey guys,
All of them had it.
Sorry for interrupting.
I know for a
Just wanna
fact
let
they
you
didn't
guys know
before.
that we've got
I
a
would have
new
noticed.
channel coming.
Now,
And it's
I don't go
an
back to that
animated
Maria.
channel. Now,
I don't read old
I
messages.
hope you guys are just as
And I don't
excited
swipe
as we
on
are for
anyone
this
who
one.
looks even slightly
And I can't
familiar.
wait to share new
Because I'm pretty
details
sure if I
soon.
do, it's
So
just going
keep
to be
an
here
eye out.
again.
For now, enjoy the rest of these stories.
The first thing I noticed about him wasn't his face, it was his bio. It said I never ghost. That was it. No emojis, no extra lines, nothing else. Just that one sentence sitting there like it meant something more than it should. I remember thinking it was kind of funny in a dry way, like he was making a point. Everyone says they hate being ghosted, but no one puts it that directly. It stuck out enough that I actually stopped scrolling and looked at his profile properly. His name was Callum. Normal photos, nothing weird. One at a gym mirror, one outside some random cafe, one with a dog that probably wasn't his. He looked decent. Not model level or anything, just someone you wouldn't question if you saw him in public. We matched pretty quickly. The messages were normal too. No weird lines, no trying too hard. He replied at a steady pace, not instantly but not slow either. It felt like talking to an actual person instead of someone trying to impress me. Looking back, that's probably why I agreed to meet him so fast. We met in this small bowling place just outside the main town. It wasn't busy, just a few groups scattered around. The lighting was kind of dim and yellow, the kind that makes everything feel slightly older than it is. He looked exactly like his photos. That's something I noticed right away because it's rare. Usually there's at least some difference, but not with him. Same face, same expressions, even the way he stood felt familiar like I'd already seen it before. The date itself wasn't bad. We bowled, walked around a bit, grabbed food after. He wasn't awkward, didn't say anything off. If anything, he was a bit too neutral, like he adjusted to whatever I said instead of having strong opinions. At one point, I remembered his bio and asked about it. He just kind of shrugged and said he doesn't disappear on people. That's it. No explanation, no joke, nothing added to it. I didn't think much of it at the time. After we left, we went our separate ways outside the car park. No weird moment, no tension. Just a normal goodbye. He said he'd text later. He didn't. That's when it started. At first, I didn't even realize something was wrong. I got home, changed into my usual clothes, threw my bag on the floor, and sat on my bed scrolling through my phone. Then I got a message from him. It wasn't anything strange at first glance, just a sentence, but it described exactly what I was doing. Not in a vague way, not like guessing. It was specific. It mentioned the way I had my legs crossed on the bed and how I kept unlocking my phone without actually opening anything. I remember freezing for a second, then immediately looking around my room like an idiot. There was no one there. I checked the window. Closed. Door. Locked. I told myself it was just coincidence. Maybe I mentioned something earlier about sitting on my bed or scrolling. Maybe he was guessing. I didn't reply. A minute later, another message. This one described me looking around the room. That's when my chest tightened a bit. I grabbed my phone and typed something back, asking what he meant. It showed as delivered. No response. Then another message came through. This time, he described my phone being in my hand and me typing. I checked his chat again. My message still hadn't been seen. That made no sense. I'd opened his profile. Still there, still matched. I sent another message. Same thing. Delivered, not seen. Another message from him came in almost instantly after, describing me sending another message. At that point, I stood up and actually checked my whole room properly. Closet, bathroom, even under the bed like I was a kid again. Nothing. No sound, no movement, nothing out of place. I went back to my phone. Another message. This one mentioned me checking under the bed. I felt this weird pressure building in my chest. Not panic exactly, just something heavy that made it hard to think straight. I tried calling him. It rang once, then went straight to voicemail. But right as the call ended, another message came through. It described me holding the phone to my ear. That's when I turned off my lights without even thinking. I don't know why I did that. It didn't make sense. If someone was watching me, turning off the lights wouldn't help. But I did it anyway. The room went dark except for my phone screen. A message came through almost instantly. It mentioned the lights going out. I stopped breathing for a second. Then another message. It described how the light from my phone was lighting up my face. I dropped my phone onto the bed like it burned me. I just stood there in the dark staring at it. It buzzed again. And again. I didn't pick it up for a while. I just listened to the vibrations against the mattress. Eventually, I grabbed it again and forced myself to look. More messages. Each one describing something small. My posture. The way I was standing. The fact that I hadn't moved much. It wasn't guessing. It was watching. I ran to the window and yanked the curtain open. Nothing outside. Just the street, empty, one car parked a bit down the road. Another message. It mentioned me opening the curtain. I pulled it shut again immediately. At that point, I left my room. I went downstairs, turned on every light in the house. Checked the front door, the back door, all locked. I even checked the spare room even though no one ever uses it. Everything was normal. My phone buzzed again. This time, the message described me walking downstairs and turning on the lights. That's when I realized something worse. It wasn't just my room. It was following me. I turned off my Wi-Fi. I don't even know why, it just felt like something I should do. The messages stopped. Just like that. No new ones. I stood there in the kitchen, holding my phone, waiting. Nothing. For a second, I actually felt relieved. Then I turned my Wi-Fi back on. Messages flooded in instantly, like they were waiting, one after another. Each one catching up on everything I did in the last few minutes. Walking downstairs, checking doors, standing in the kitchen. All of it. I turned it off again. Silence. Turned it back on. More messages. That's when I noticed something else. The timestamps. They weren't delayed. They matched exactly when I did those things, even when my Wi-Fi was off, which meant they weren't being sent late. They were being written in real time. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed downstairs with the lights on, Wi-Fi off, just sitting there staring at my phone. In the morning, I checked the app again. His profile was gone. Not unmatched. Gone. Like it never existed. I checked my messages. Still there. Every single one. I deleted the app after that. Didn't want to see it anymore. For a couple days, nothing happened. Then I got a text. Not through the app. Just a normal message. No name, just a number. It described me sitting on a bed again. Same spot as before. Same position. I didn't even question how it got my number. I just turned off my phone completely, and I haven't turned it back on since. I didn't even want to go out that night. That's the part that sticks with me the most. It wasn't some big plan or anything I was excited about. It was one of those last-minute decisions where you're already lying in bed, and then suddenly you're putting shoes on for no real reason. I almost canceled on her twice before leaving. Her name was Leah. Her profile was normal, maybe a bit more polished than most. The kind where every photo looks like it could be posted anywhere without questions. Good lighting, clean background, nothing messy or random. She didn't look fake, just controlled, like she knew exactly how she wanted to come across. We matched the same day I saw her. She messaged first, which already made her stand out a bit. Not anything weird, just direct. Asked if I wanted to meet instead of talking forever on the app. I respected that, so I said yes. We met in this late-night food place near the edge of town. Not a proper restaurant, more like one of those spots that stays open too late and attracts people who don't want to go home yet. Bright lights, plastic chairs, that kind of place. When I walked in, I spotted her straight away. She looked exactly like her photos, but more real in a way that's hard to explain. Not better or worse, just more present. Like she didn't fade into the background like most people do when you first meet them. The date started normal. We ordered food, sat across from each other, talked about basic stuff. Work, where we grew up, usual things. She didn't seem awkward at all. If anything, she was slightly too comfortable. Not in a bad way, just like she skipped the whole phase where people are a bit unsure around each other. I noticed early on that she looked at me a lot. Not just normal eye contact, but like she was studying my face. Every time I looked up, her eyes were already on me. It didn't feel romantic. It felt more like she was trying to remember something. I brushed it off. At some point, she pulled out her phone and said she liked to take photos to remember things. That didn't sound weird at first. Loads of people do that. Then she asked to take a selfie with me. I hesitated for a second, not because I thought anything was wrong, but just because I'm not really into taking photos like that. But she already had her phone up, already leaning slightly closer. So I just went along with it. We took the picture. I remember the exact moment because she adjusted the angle twice before actually taking it. She tilted her head slightly, then moved a bit closer to me, then pulled back just enough. Like she was trying to get something precise. After she took it, she looked at the screen for a bit longer than normal. Most people just glance and move on. She didn't. She stared at it for a few seconds, then nodded to herself like it was exactly what she wanted. She didn't show me the photo. I didn't ask. The rest of the night was fine. We finished eating, walked outside, stood around for a bit. Nothing strange happened. She didn't act different, didn't say anything weird. If anything, she seemed slightly more relaxed after taking that photo. We went our separate ways after that. I got home around midnight. I didn't think about her much at first. Just another date that might or might not lead to something. I threw my jacket on the chair, sat on my bed, and started scrolling through my phone like usual. That's when I saw it. It wasn't even on my feed directly. It was suggested. Her profile. Different app. I hadn't followed her anywhere else, so I don't know how it showed up. But there it was. Same name, same face. And at the top, her most recent post. The photo we just took. I recognized it instantly. Same angle, same lighting, same background from the food place. But something was wrong. My face was blurred. Not slightly. Completely. Like someone had intentionally wiped it out. Her face was perfectly clear. Sharp, centered, exactly how she looked in person. Mine looked like it didn't belong there. Like I wasn't supposed to be in the picture at all. I felt this weird drop in my chest. I opened the post properly. There was a caption under it. Still looking for the right one. I stared at that for a while, trying to understand it. It didn't make sense. We literally just met. Why post that? And why blur my face like that? I went to her profile. Scrolled through her older posts. That's when it got worse. Every photo was the same type. Selfies with different guys. Different places. Different outfits. But every single one had the same pattern. Her face clear. The guy's face blurred. And the captions. All slightly different, but basically the same idea. Still looking. Not quite. Almost. Each post spaced out by a few days or a week. Like a routine. I kept scrolling. There were a lot of them. More than felt normal. At some point, I noticed something else. The backgrounds. Some of them were places I recognized around town. Some weren't. But a few didn't look like public places at all. More like rooms, houses, private spaces. I went back to our photo. Zoomed in. That's when I saw it. My face wasn't just blurred. It was smoothed out in a way that didn't match the rest of the image. Like it had been altered beyond just hiding it. I don't know how to explain it properly, but it looked like my features had been removed before the blur was added. Like something was taken out first. I checked the time it was posted. 10 minutes after I left. That didn't make sense either. She posted it almost immediately. I checked my phone for messages from her. Nothing. The chat was still there, unchanged. I clicked on her profile through the app. It loaded. Same photos as before. But there was one new addition. A new picture. Not the selfie. A different one. Just her. Same outfit as tonight. Standing outside the place we met. And the caption was already there. Trying again tomorrow. That's when I started feeling something properly wrong. Not just confusion, but something heavier. Like I missed something important and now I was catching up too late. I went back to the other app. Refreshed her profile. The selfie was still there, but the like count had gone up. Comments too. People saying things like you'll find him. Keep going. Almost there. Like they'd seen this pattern before. I clicked on one of the accounts that commented. Scrolled through their posts. And I found her again. In the background of a photo. Standing behind a group of people. Same face. Same expression. Different setting. Posted months ago. I went back. Checked another account. Same thing. She was there too. Always somewhere in the background. Never the focus. Just present. Like she moved through other people's lives without being noticed properly. I don't know how long I sat there going through profiles and photos. It felt like hours. Eventually, I went back to our chat again. Still nothing from her. So I sent a message. Asking about the photo. It delivered. No reply. A few minutes later, I got a notification. From the other app. She posted again. Same selfie. Same one. But slightly different. The blur over my face was heavier this time. More distorted. And the caption changed. Not this one. I didn't message again after that. I didn't go out the next day. But I kept checking her profile. Around the same time the next night, a new post appeared. Different guy. Different place. Same pose. Same blur over his face. Caption set maybe this time. I stopped checking after that. But sometimes when I'm scrolling randomly, her profile still shows up. Always with someone new. Always the same format. And every time I see it, I feel this weird sense that if I look too closely at those blurred faces, I might recognize more than I should. I didn't notice it at first because everything about him felt easy. That's probably why it got as far as it did. If something feels off right away, you leave. But when it feels normal, even good, you ignore the small things until they stack up. His profile name was Daniel. Nothing weird about it. Just Daniel, one photo smiling outside what looked like a train station, another one sitting at a table with coffee, one slightly blurry gym picture. He looked clean, put together, not trying too hard. His bio was simple too, just said he liked late dinners in quiet places. We matched and started talking that same night. He was quick with replies, but not in an annoying way. Just enough to keep the conversation moving. He asked actual questions, remembered things I said, didn't repeat himself like most people do when they're juggling multiple chats. After a couple days, he suggested we meet. The place he picked was this older restaurant tucked between two newer buildings. I'd walked past it before, but never gone in. It always looked a bit dim from the outside, like it didn't rely on foot traffic much. I almost said no just because of the location, but I didn't. When I got there, he was already inside, sitting at a corner table near the back. He looked exactly like his photos, maybe a bit more relaxed in person. Same smile, same posture. He stood up when I walked over, like he'd been waiting properly, not just scrolling on his phone. The place itself felt quiet in a strange way. Not empty, there were other people there, but the noise didn't carry much. Conversation stayed at tables, plates barely clinked. It made everything feel more focused. We sat down and started talking like it was already our third date. That's the best way I can explain it. No awkward start, no small talk phase. Just straight into normal conversation like we already knew each other. Then the first thing happened. A waiter walked over and greeted him by name, but not Daniel. A completely different name. I noticed it instantly but didn't react. I just assumed maybe I misheard or it was a nickname or something. He didn't correct it either. He just responded like it was normal. The waiter took our order and left. I almost asked about it right there, but I didn't want to make it weird over something small. A few minutes later, a different staff member came over with drinks. She greeted him too. Different name again. Not even close to the first one. This time I definitely noticed. I looked at him to see if he'd react. He didn't. Same calm expression, same tone, like nothing was off. After she left, I asked him about it. I tried to keep it casual, like I wasn't making a big deal out of it. He just kind of smiled and brushed it off. Didn't give a real answer. Just moved the conversation along like I hadn't asked anything important. That should have been enough for me to push it more. But I didn't. The food came, and things kept going normally. We talked about random stuff, movies, places around town, boring things that felt interesting just because the conversation flowed well. Then it happened again. Another staff member walked past our table and greeted him. Different name. Third one. This time I couldn't ignore it. I waited until the staff member left and then brought it up again. Asked him directly which one was actually his name. He paused for a second. Not long, just enough to feel noticeable. Then he gave me the same name from his profile. Daniel. But something about the way he said it didn't sit right. Like it was a default answer, not a real one. I started paying more attention after that. Every time someone from the staff interacted with him, they used a different name. Not variations. Completely different names. And every time he responded like it was correct. No hesitation. No correction. Just smooth like he was used to it. At one point, I excused myself and went to the restroom. But I didn't go in right away. I stopped one of the staff near the hallway and asked about him. I mentioned the names, asked which one was actually his. The reaction I got wasn't confusion like I expected. It was more like hesitation. Like I'd asked something they didn't want to answer. The staff member looked back toward the dining area, then back at me, and then said they thought I was joking. I told them I wasn't. That's when they said something that didn't make sense. They said he comes in sometimes, but not always as the same person. I asked what that meant. They couldn't explain it properly. Just said they recognize him, but the name is never the same. And the bookings are always under different names too. I felt this heavy feeling in my stomach at that point. Not panic, just something settling in slowly. I went back to the table. He was sitting exactly how I left him. Same posture. Same calm look. Like nothing had happened. I sat down and looked at him properly for the first time since arriving. Not just glancing, actually looking. And I started noticing small things that didn't line up. His face looked normal, but the more I focused, the harder it was to hold on to specific details. Like I could see him clearly, but if I tried to focus on one feature, it felt like it shifted slightly. Not physically changing, just not consistent. I don't know how to explain it better than that. The rest of the day continued like nothing was wrong. But I wasn't really present anymore. I kept watching him, watching how he reacted, waiting for something obvious. But nothing obvious happened. Just small things. Subtle things. Enough to keep that feeling growing. When the bill came, it was brought over by another staff member. They greeted him with a name I hadn't heard yet. Fourth one. I looked at the receipt when it was placed on the table. The name on it didn't match any of the ones I'd heard, including Daniel. He paid without hesitation. Didn't even look at it properly. We left the restaurant together. Outside, the air felt colder than it should have. We stood there for a bit, just like normal people after a date. Nothing dramatic. Nothing strange on the surface. But I couldn't stop thinking about what the staff member said. About him not always being the same person. I asked him one last time what his name was. This time he didn't answer straight away. He just looked at me. Not confused. Not annoyed. Just looking. Then he gave me a name. Not Daniel. Not any of the others I'd heard. A completely new one. And the way he said it felt more real than the others. That's what made it worse. Because it didn't match anything. I left after that. Didn't wait around. Didn't try to figure it out more. I just walked away. When I got home, I checked the app. His profile was still there, but the name had changed. It wasn't Daniel anymore. It was the last name he told me outside. Same photos. Same bio. Just a different name. I stared at it for a long time. Then I refreshed the app. The name changed again. I haven't opened it since. I matched with her for about 10 seconds. That's not an exaggeration. I remember because I was still holding my phone up, thumb hovering, when everything just disappeared. Her name was Iris. I saw her profile, swiped, matched instantly, and then it was gone. No glitch screen, no error message, nothing like that. It just snapped back to the main page like she was never there. I even checked my matches tab straight away. Nothing. No new chat, no trace of her. If I hadn't seen her name pop up at the top for that split second, I probably would have thought I imagined it. But I didn't imagine it. Because she had already sent a message. I know that sounds impossible, but I saw the notification. Her name, one message. I tapped it, and it opened nothing. Just an empty chat screen that closed itself a second later. That should have been the end of it. Just one of those weird app glitches you forget about. But I didn't forget. Something about her profile stuck in my head. Not even anything specific, just the overall feel of it. She didn't look fake or over-edited or anything like that. Just off in a quiet way. Like every photo was normal on its own, but together they didn't fully line up. I told myself to leave it. Then about an hour later, I got a message. Not on the app. Just a normal text. No saved contact. The message mentioned my name and the location I had listed on my profile. Said we were still meeting. I just stared at my phone for a while trying to figure out how that even happened. I never gave my number. It wasn't linked publicly anywhere. At least not in a way someone could just grab like that. I should have blocked it right away. But I didn't. I replied. I asked who it was. The reply came back almost instantly. She used the name Iris. Said the app removed her, but the plan didn't change. I didn't remember agreeing to a plan. But then I thought back to that split second after matching. Maybe she sent something quickly before it disappeared. Maybe I tapped something without realizing. It didn't feel right, but it also didn't feel impossible. We ended up agreeing on a place. Or maybe I just went along with what she said. I can't fully remember how that part happened. The location was different from anywhere I've been before. Not a restaurant or cafe this time. It was an old indoor market that had mostly shut down. A few stalls still open during the day, but at night it was basically empty. I'd heard about it, but never actually gone inside. That alone should have been enough for me to cancel. But I didn't. I got there just before it got fully dark. The outside lights were on, but inside it was dim. Only a few overhead lights working, leaving parts of the place in shadow. The air felt stale, like it hadn't been properly ventilated in years. I walked in and immediately felt like I shouldn't be there. Not because of anything I saw, just the atmosphere. Too quiet, too still. I checked my phone. One new message. She said she was already inside. I looked around. Didn't see anyone at first. Then I noticed her standing near one of the closed stalls toward the back. She wasn't on her phone. She was just standing there, facing me like she'd been waiting the whole time. I walked over slowly. She looked exactly like her profile, but at the same time, not really. It was like seeing a photo come to life, but missing something small you can't name. Her expression didn't change when I got closer. No smile, no awkward greeting, just calm. Still. We started walking through the market. There wasn't much to do, just empty spaces and closed shutters, a couple flickering lights overhead. Our footsteps echoed more than they should have. I tried to bring up the app thing. Asked why her profile disappeared. She didn't seem surprised by the question. She said it happens. Like it was normal. That's when she mentioned it. She said they don't like what she is. Not in a joking way. Not trying to be mysterious. Just like she was stating a fact. I asked what she meant. She didn't answer directly. Just kept walking. We passed a section where the lights were completely out. For a second, I lost sight of her. Then she was ahead of me again, like she hadn't stopped moving at all. That's when I noticed something else. There were security cameras around the market. Old ones mounted in corners. I looked at one as we passed under it. The small red light wasn't on. It wasn't active. But as we walked further, I saw another one. Same thing. No light. I checked my phone again. No signal. Not even a weak one. Just nothing. I asked her about that too. She said it doesn't work around her. Same calm tone. Like she'd said it 100 times before. We stopped near the back exit of the market. A metal door with a small window, but it was too dirty to see through. She turned to face me properly for the first time. And that's when things stopped feeling even slightly normal. Up close, her face looked fine. But when I tried to focus on it, it felt like it didn't stay consistent. Not changing shape or anything obvious. Just small details not staying in place. Like my brain couldn't fully process what I was seeing. I blinked a couple times, thinking it was just the lighting. It didn't help. She said something about the app again. About how it always removes her quickly. Said it recognizes her too fast. I asked how. She tilted her head slightly. And said because she's not supposed to be there. That's when I stepped back. Not a big move, just enough to create space. She didn't follow. She just watched me. Still calm. Still completely unbothered. I asked what she meant again. This time she gave a clearer answer. She said she uses different photos each time. Different names. But it doesn't matter. It always catches up. Always deletes her. I asked what happens after that. She looked at me for a second longer than before. Then said she just makes a new one. And tries again. That's when my phone buzzed. I looked down. No signal. But there was a notification. From the app. I opened it. New match. Different name. Different photos. But the face was hers. I looked back up at her. She hadn't moved. I checked the profile again. The photos were different from what I remembered earlier. Different angles. Different clothes. Same person. I refreshed the app. The profile disappeared. Just like before. I looked up again. She was closer now. I don't remember her stepping forward. But she was definitely closer. She said something about it working better in person. That they can't remove her there. I didn't ask who they were. I didn't want to. I just turned and walked toward the exit. I didn't run, but I didn't stop either. I pushed the door open and got outside as fast as I could without making it obvious I was panicking. The air outside felt completely different. Normal. My phone got signal back instantly. I checked the app one more time. Nothing. No matches. No trace. I went home and didn't go back out that night. Later, I checked again. There was a new profile at the top. Different name. Different photos. Same face. I didn't swipe. I just closed the app. I almost swiped left without thinking, like I usually do when a profile looks unfinished. No bio, no extra photos, nothing to go off. Just one picture. That's it. The only reason I didn't was because the photo felt weirdly clear. Not high quality, not professional. Just clear in a way that made it stand out. Like whoever took it didn't move at all. No blur, no bad lighting, nothing distracting. Just him standing there, looking straight at the camera. No smile. Not serious either. Just neutral. His name was there, but I don't even remember it now. It didn't stick. Only the face did. I stared at it longer than I should have. Something about it felt familiar, but not in a way I could place. Not like I knew him, more like I'd seen a version of that face before somewhere else. I swiped right mostly out of curiosity. We matched instantly. No delay, no waiting. And before I could even think about sending anything, he messaged first. It was short. Just asking to meet. No small talk. Normally, I would have ignored that. But I didn't. I said yes. The place we picked wasn't busy. It was this open rooftop parking lot that overlooked part of the city. People go there sometimes just to sit on the edge and talk or look at the view. It's not exactly a proper hangout spot, but it's known enough that it didn't feel completely random. I got there just after sunset. The sky was still light enough to see everything clearly, but the streetlights had already turned on. The concrete still held a bit of warmth from the day. He was already there. Standing near the edge. Same posture as the photo. That's what I noticed first. Not his face. The posture. Like the picture wasn't just a picture. It was him, paused. Then I got closer. And that's when I saw it. He looked at the photo, but slightly off. Not enough that you'd immediately think something was wrong. Just small things. His jaw looked a bit sharper than in the photo. His eyes slightly deeper set. His hair not sitting exactly the same way. I told myself it was just angles. Photos do that. They flatten things. Change proportions. It made sense. Until I blinked. And something changed. I don't mean in a dramatic way. Not like his face moved or shifted right in front of me. It was more like I blinked, and when I opened my eyes again, something about him was different. His nose looked slightly narrower, or maybe it always was. I couldn't tell. I focused on it. Tried to remember how it looked a second ago. I couldn't. That's what made it worse. We started walking along the edge of the rooftop. I kept glancing at him while we moved. Every time I blinked, something small changed. His eyebrows, the shape of his lips, the distance between his eyes. Nothing huge. Nothing that would stand out on its own. But together, it didn't stay consistent. I started trying to keep my eyes open longer. Like if I didn't blink, he wouldn't change. It worked for a bit. As long as I stared, he stayed the same. But the second I blinked again, something shifted. I asked him something simple just to ground myself. He answered normally. His voice didn't change. That stayed consistent. Which somehow made everything else worse. Because it meant I wasn't imagining him entirely. Just parts of him. We sat down near the edge after a while. Cars moving below, lights flickering across the road. I kept looking at him, then away, then back again. Trying to catch the moment something changed. But it never happened while I was looking. Only in the gaps. Only when my eyes closed for even a second. At one point, I looked down at my hands for a few seconds, just to reset. When I looked back up, his whole face felt different. Still him. But like a slightly different version. If I had seen that version first, I would have thought it was normal. That's what made it hard to explain. Each version made sense on its own. They just didn't match each other. I started to feel this pressure behind my eyes from trying not to blink. It got uncomfortable. Dry. I blinked anyway. And this time, the change was more noticeable. His eyes were lighter. Not a completely different color. Just lighter enough that I knew it wasn't the same. I stared at him, trying to confirm it. But the longer I looked, the harder it was to remember what they looked like before. He didn't react to any of this. Didn't ask why I was staring. Didn't seem aware that anything was happening. Or maybe he was, and just didn't care. I tested something. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera, pointed it at him. On the screen, he looked stable. No changes. I blinked while looking at the screen. Nothing shifted. I lowered the phone. Looked at him directly. Blink. Different again. That's when I felt something properly wrong. Not confusion anymore. Something deeper. Because it meant it wasn't just my vision. Or maybe it was, but only in a specific way. Only when I saw him directly. I tried looking at him through reflections. Car windows. My phone screen again. Even a small metal surface nearby. Every time he stayed consistent. Only changed when I looked at him without anything in between. We stood up after a while. Started walking again. I noticed something else then. It wasn't just his face anymore. His height felt slightly different too. Not growing or shrinking in front of me. But after each blink, he felt either a bit taller or a bit shorter relative to me. Like my sense of him wasn't staying fixed. I asked him how tall he was. He gave an answer. I don't remember what it was, because it didn't match what I was seeing anyway. At some point, I stopped trying to track the changes. It was too much. Too inconsistent. Instead, I just focused on getting through the rest of the time there. We eventually walked back toward the entrance of the parking lot. The lights were brighter there. More direct. I thought maybe that would help. It didn't. If anything, it made the changes easier to notice. Sharper. More obvious. I blinked once more. And this time, something didn't just change. Something disappeared. For a split second after I opened my eyes, his face felt incomplete. Like a detail was missing. I blinked again quickly. It came back. Or maybe it was replaced. I don't know. That's when I decided I was done. I said I had to leave. He didn't question it. Just nodded. Same calm expression he had the whole time. I walked away without looking back. Got into my car and sat there for a minute before starting it. I checked my phone. Opened his profile. Still there. Same single photo. I stared at it, trying to see if it matched any version I'd seen in person. It didn't. Or maybe it matched all of them a little. I blinked. The photo looked slightly different. I refreshed the app. It stayed the same. I blinked again. Different. That's when I closed it. I haven't opened it since. And now I catch myself doing something I never used to think about. Every time I look at someone for too long, I start wondering if they stay the same when I blink. I haven't been back to my childhood house in years. Not properly. Just driving past sometimes if I'm in the area, like a habit I never really dropped. I don't stop. Don't get out. Just slow down a bit and look at it like it still belongs to me in some way. It doesn't. New people live there now. New car in the driveway, different curtains, small changes you only notice if you remember exactly how it used to look. So when she started asking about it, it didn't hit me right away. Her name was Sophie. Her profile was normal. Nothing that stood out too much. A couple outdoor photos, one in a cafe, one blurry one at night. She looked relaxed, not trying too hard. Bio was short, just said she liked old places and stories behind them. We matched and started talking like usual. At first, it was basic stuff. Where are you from? What you do, all that? Then she asked about where I grew up. That's not weird on its own. People ask that all the time. So I told her the town name, didn't go into detail. She asked what the house was like. Again, not that strange. So I gave a general answer. Semi-detached, small garden, nothing special. That's when her questions got more specific. She asked if there was a tree near the back fence. I paused for a second when I read that. Because there was. An old tree that leaned slightly to one side. It was there the whole time I was growing up. I hadn't mentioned that. I figured maybe she was guessing. Lots of houses have trees. So I said yeah. Then she asked if the kitchen window faced that tree. That made me stop properly. Because it did. Exactly like that. I asked how she knew. She just said she likes picturing places when people describe them. That didn't fully explain it, but it was enough that I didn't push it. Looking back, I should have. She kept going. Asked if the stairs creaked near the top step. They did. Always had. Asked if there was a small crack in the wall near the front door. There was. I remember it because my parents talked about fixing it for years and never did. At that point, it stopped feeling like guessing. It felt like she knew. I tried to turn it into a joke. Asked if she'd been there before. She didn't answer that directly. Just said she remembers things well. That's when I should have ended it. But I didn't. We kept talking. And somehow, I still agreed to meet her. The place we chose was completely different from anywhere near my old area. A small indoor arcade that's still open late. Bright lights, loud machines, people moving around constantly. It felt like the opposite of everything she'd been asking about. When I got there, she was already inside, leaning against one of the machines, watching people play. She looked exactly like her photos. No weird difference. No off feeling at first. She smiled when she saw me, like everything was normal. We walked around, played a couple games, nothing serious. But even in that setting, she kept bringing it back. The house. Not directly at first. Just small comments. Asking what my room was like. Which side of the house it was on. If I could see the street from the window. Each question more specific than the last. And every answer I gave, she nodded like she already knew it. Not surprised. Just confirming. At one point, she mentioned the hallway. Said it felt narrow. I never said that. But it was. It always felt tighter than it should have. I started feeling this weird pressure in my chest. Not panic. Just something building slowly. I asked her again how she knew all this. She said it felt familiar. That's all. The rest of the time it felt off after that. Not in an obvious way. Just like I couldn't relax anymore. Everything she said felt like it had a second meaning I wasn't catching. We left after a while. Went our separate ways. Nothing dramatic. No big moment. Just ended like a normal date. But it didn't feel normal. The next day, I couldn't stop thinking about it. About the house. About how she described things I never told her. So I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I drove out there. I told myself it was just curiosity. Just checking. It wasn't far. About 20 minutes from where I live now. The closer I got, the more it felt like something I shouldn't be doing. Like going somewhere I wasn't meant to go back to. I turned onto the street. Everything looked the same as always. Same layout. Same houses. Small changes here and there, but nothing major. Then I saw my old house. And I slowed down. At first, it looked normal. Car in the driveway. Curtains closed. Nothing out of place. Then I noticed someone standing in the yard. Near the front. Just standing there. Facing the street. I already knew it was her before I got close enough to see properly. Same posture. Same stillness. Safi. Standing in the yard like she belonged there. Like she'd always been there. My hands tightened on the steering wheel without me thinking about it. I slowed down even more. She lifted her hand. And waved. Not in a big excited way. Just a calm, slow wave. Like she was greeting someone she knew would pass by. My chest felt heavy. Not racing. Just heavy. Like something was settling into place that I didn't want to understand. I didn't stop. I kept driving. But I couldn't stop looking in the mirror as I passed. She stayed there. Still facing the road. Still waving. Until she disappeared from view. I drove around the block. I don't know why. I just did. When I came back down the same street, she was gone. The yard was empty. House looked normal again. Like nothing had happened. I parked a bit further down and sat there for a minute, trying to make sense of it. Maybe she knew someone who lived there now. Maybe she was visiting. Maybe it was all coincidence. But none of that explained how she knew every detail. I got out of the car and walked back toward the house. Slowly. Not sure what I was expecting. As I got closer, I noticed something small. The tree in the back. I could see part of it from the side angle. Same lean. Same shape. Nothing changed. I looked at the front door. The crack in the wall next to it. Still there. Exactly the same. Then I saw movement inside. Through the small gap in the curtains. Someone walking past. I stepped closer to the edge of the driveway, just enough to see a bit more. And for a second, I saw her again. Inside, walking through the hallway. Like she knew exactly where she was going. Like she walked that path 100 times before. I stepped back immediately. My heart started picking up then. Not fast, but enough that I felt it. I went back to my car without knocking, without checking anything else. I didn't want confirmation. I drove away. Didn't look back this time. When I got home, I checked my phone. Her profile was gone. Chat deleted. Like it never existed. But later that night, I got a notification. Different name. Different photos. Same face. Bio said something new. It mentioned liking houses with history. I didn't open it. I just turned my phone off. I haven't gone back to that street since. But sometimes when I'm driving somewhere else, I catch myself thinking about that yard and wondering if she's still standing there, or if she's inside now, walking through rooms that used to be mine. I didn't trust it from the start, but not in a serious way. More like when something lines up too clean and you joke about it being fake, but still go along with it anyway. That's exactly what it felt like with him. Everything matched. Not just a few things. Everything. His name was Aaron. His profile looked normal, nothing flashy. A couple photos, one sitting on a couch, one outside somewhere green, one low-quality one that looked older. His bio was short but weirdly specific. It mentioned music I actually listened to, not the usual stuff people put to seem interesting. Bands I don't even tell people about because it's not worth explaining. I thought it was coincidence at first. Then we matched. And it just kept lining up. We started talking, and within the first 10 minutes, he mentioned a song I used to play all the time when I was younger. Not popular, not trending, just something random I found years ago. I hadn't posted it anywhere. Not on any profile. Not even in old posts. I checked after he said it. Nothing. I told myself maybe it's just a common taste thing. People like similar stuff. That happens. Then he brought up a movie. Same thing. Not popular. Not something people usually bring up unless they really know it. And not just the movie, but a specific scene. The exact one I always think about when I remember it. At that point, it felt weird. But not enough to stop. If anything, it made the conversation feel easy. Like I didn't have to explain anything. He already got it. That's what pulled me in. We talked for a couple of days before meeting, and every single time it was the same pattern. He'd mention something, and it would line up perfectly with something in my head. Not things I posted. Things I remembered. Private stuff. Small details. Like how I used to sit on the floor instead of my bed when I was reading as a kid. I never told anyone that. It wasn't even important. Just something I did. He mentioned it like it was normal. I didn't question it properly. I just laughed it off. That's the worst part. I kept brushing it off. We decided to meet after that. The place was different from anywhere I'd gone on these kinds of dates before. It was an old library that had been turned into a late-night study space. Still had the same layout, shelves everywhere, quiet atmosphere, but people used it more casually now. Soft lights, low voices, that kind of place. He was already there when I arrived. Sitting at one of the long tables. Head slightly down like he was looking at something, but not actually using his phone. He looked exactly like his photos. Maybe a bit more relaxed. But still, perfect. That's the only way I can describe it. Not perfect in a model way. Perfect in a matching way. Everything about him lined up with what I expected. Too clean. Too exact. We sat down and started talking like we've been talking for weeks. No awkward pause. No adjustment. Just straight into it. And again, everything matched. Same sense of humor. Same timing. Same reactions. Even the way he laughed at certain things felt familiar. Like I'd heard it before. At some point, I tested it. I mentioned something random from when I was younger. Something vague. Just to see what he'd do. He didn't ask for more detail. He just filled it in. Correctly. Added things I didn't say. Things that were true. That's when I felt something shift. Not in the room. In me. Because it stopped feeling like coincidence. It felt like he already had the information. I asked him how he knew that. He just shrugged it off. Same way I had been doing. Like it wasn't worth explaining. We kept talking, but I started paying more attention. Watching him instead of just listening. And I noticed something. He didn't hesitate. Not once. Every response came instantly. Like there was no thinking process. Just output. I tried something else. I asked about a memory I knew I never shared. Something specific. From my old house. A moment that didn't matter to anyone but me. He described it. Not perfectly. But close enough that it didn't feel like guessing. He got the setting right. The time of day. Even small details about what I was doing. I felt my chest tighten slightly. I asked him again how he knew that. This time he looked at me for a bit longer. Then said something that didn't sit right. He said I already told him. I hadn't. I knew I hadn't. I would remember saying something like that. I started going through everything in my head. All our messages. Everything we talked about. It wasn't there. There's no way I mentioned it. I checked my phone. Scrolled through our chat. Nothing. No mention of it anywhere. I looked back up at him. He was still watching me. Same calm expression. Like he was waiting for me to catch up. That's when I noticed something else. His wording. The way he said things. It sounded like me. Not copying exactly. But structured the same way I think. Short, direct, slightly off rhythm. Like I was hearing my own thoughts come from someone else. I tried to change the subject. Talk about something current. Something normal. He followed along perfectly. Still matching everything. Still too aligned. Then he brought up something I hadn't even thought about in years. A small moment from when I was really young. Something I barely remember myself. And he described it better than I could. That's when it hit properly. Not a slow realization. A sudden one. He wasn't learning me. He already had me. All of it. Everything I remembered. Everything I forgot. I felt this pressure in my head. Like trying to hold on to something that was slipping. I asked him one more question. Something simple. Asked where he got all this from. He didn't answer straight away. He just looked at me. Then said something that didn't make sense. He said it's easier this way. That people respond better when things feel familiar. I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't want to. I just stood up. Said I had to go. He didn't try to stop me. Didn't question it. Just nodded. Like he expected it. I left the library and didn't look back. The air outside felt different. Louder. More real. I checked my phone. Opened the app. His profile was still there. Same photos. Same bio. But when I opened our chat, it was empty. Completely blank. No messages. Like we never spoke. I went back to his profile. Looked at it again. Something felt off. Not the photos. The bio. It had changed. It wasn't about music anymore. It mentioned something else. Something more general. Less specific. Like it had reset. I closed the app. Didn't open it again that night. But later, when I couldn't sleep, I kept thinking about something. Not him. Not the date. Just one question. If he knew everything about me before we even met, then what exactly was he getting out of it? Because it didn't feel like he was learning anything new. It felt like he was checking something. And I don't know if I passed. I knew something was wrong before I even unlocked my phone. It was one of those mornings where you wake up and something feels off, but you can't place it yet. Nothing loud, nothing obvious. Just a quiet feeling that something changed while you were asleep. My room looked normal. Same messy chair in the corner, same half-open drawer, same light coming through the gap in the curtains. Nothing moved, nothing broken. Everything exactly how I left it. But I still felt it. I grabbed my phone off the floor next to my bed. That's when I noticed the battery. It was lower than it should have been. I always plug it in before I sleep. Every night, same routine. I even remember doing it the night before. But now it was at 12%. I stared at it for a second, trying to remember if I actually plugged it in or just thought about it. Then I unlocked it, and everything dropped at once. My camera roll was open. I don't remember leaving it like that. And at the top, there were new photos. A lot of them. More than I would ever take in one night. I didn't scroll at first. I just looked at the first one, and it didn't register straight away. It was my room. From the corner, taken from an angle that didn't make sense. Then I realized why. Because it wasn't taken from my perspective. It was taken from inside the room, facing my bed. I was in it, asleep. I felt this slow, heavy feeling settle in my chest. I scrolled. Next photo. Same thing. Different angle. Closer. Still me asleep. The lighting was slightly different, like the camera adjusted between shots. I kept scrolling. More. Each one taken from a different position. Near the door. By the window. Closer to the bed. Farther away. Angles that meant whoever took them was moving around the room. Quietly. While I was there. I sat up without realizing it. My eyes went straight to the door. Still closed. Then the window. Locked. Nothing out of place. I looked back at the phone. More photos. Some of them closer than they should be. One taken from right next to the bed. So close I could see details I didn't want to see. The way my arm was positioned. The way my face was turned slightly into the pillow. I don't sleep lightly. Once I'm out, I'm out. But still, that close. And I didn't wake up. I kept scrolling. And then I saw something that made it worse. In one of the photos, there was a shadow. Not mine. Not from anything in the room. A shape just slightly visible near the edge of the frame. Like someone standing there, holding the phone. I stopped scrolling. My hands felt cold. I looked around the room again. Nothing. Same as before. But it didn't feel the same anymore. It felt used. Like someone had been there and left without a trace. That's when I remembered her. The night before. Her name was Mia. We matched a few days earlier. Her profile was normal. A few pictures. Nothing strange. She looked relaxed, a bit quiet maybe, but nothing that stood out as wrong. We talked for a bit. She wasn't overly talkative, but she replied enough to keep things going. We ended up meeting late. Not at a restaurant or anything. Just walking around for a bit, then ending up back at my place. I don't even remember fully deciding that. It just happened. Everything about the night felt slightly blurred now. Not completely gone. Just unclear. Like trying to remember a dream after waking up. I remember sitting in my room, talking. Her looking around a lot. Not in a nosy way. More like she was taking things in carefully. Noticing details. At one point, I remember her standing near the door. Just standing there. Looking at the room. Then it jumps. The next thing I remember is lying down. Not even falling asleep. Just being there. And then nothing. Until I woke up. I went back to the photos. Scrolled again. Trying to see if there was anything else. Anything that showed her clearly. But there wasn't. Just a shadow. In a few of them. Always at the edge. Never fully in frame. I checked the timestamps. They were spaced out. Every few minutes. For hours. Not just one moment. Not just a few shots. She was in my room for hours. Moving around. Taking pictures. While I slept. I checked the last photo. It was taken just before I woke up. The angle was from the doorway. Looking back at the bed. Like whoever took it was leaving. That's when I stood up properly. Went straight to the door. Opened it. Checked the hallway. Nothing. Everything quiet. I checked the front door. Locked. Chain still on. No sign it had been opened. I checked the windows again. Still locked. No damage. No way in or out that I could see. I went back to my room. Sat in the bed. Looked at the photos again. And then I noticed something I missed before. In one of the earlier photos near the middle, there was something on my desk. A phone. Not mine. Different case. Different shape. Placed right next to my stuff. I don't remember her putting it there. I don't remember seeing it at all. I got up and checked my desk. Nothing. Just my usual things. No second phone. I went back to the photo. Zoomed in. It was definitely there. Clear as anything. Then I checked the next photo after it. The phone was gone. Like it was never there. That's when my phone buzzed. I nearly dropped it. A message. Unknown number. No name. Just one line. It said I looked peaceful. I didn't reply. I couldn't. I just stared at it. Another message came in. It mentioned the way I moved slightly in my sleep. Said it almost ruined the angle. My chest felt tight. I looked back at the photos. Scrolled faster this time. Looking for anything else. And then I saw one I hadn't noticed before. Near the end. It was closer than all the others. Right next to my face. And in the reflection of my eye, you could see her. Not clearly, but enough. Standing over me. Holding the phone. Looking straight down. I locked my phone immediately. Didn't delete anything. Didn't respond. I just sat there. Listening. Waiting for any sound in the house. There wasn't any. Later, I checked the app. Her profile was gone. Chat deleted. Like it never happened. But the photos are still there. I haven't deleted them. I don't know why. Maybe because it feels worse pretending it didn't happen. Now I don't sleep the same. Not fully. I wake up multiple times a night. Check the room. Check the door. Check the corners. And sometimes when I wake up suddenly, I get this feeling that I just missed something. Like someone was there a second ago, and I just didn't open my eyes fast enough. I matched with him late at night, scrolling through the app while half asleep, not expecting much. His profile was weirdly bare. Just a couple photos, nothing else, but something about the way he smiled made me swipe right. Nothing flashy, just normal looking, but there was this little twitch in his eye in the picture that kept pulling me back, like he knew something I didn't. We started chatting that night, nothing crazy. Short messages, a few laughs. He suggested we meet the next evening at a coffee shop downtown. I wasn't planning on going really, but something in his tone made me curious. I told myself it would be fine, casual, nothing serious. The next day I got ready and left my apartment, still feeling that weird tug of curiosity. The place we agreed on was crowded but cozy, a little quiet corner where I could actually hear someone talk. I sat down, trying not to notice how my stomach felt tight for no reason, and then he walked in, just like his pictures. Smiling, casual, normal. I told myself I was overthinking the little twitch in his eye. We started talking. Everything seemed fine at first. He had the same laugh in person, same energy, same jokes I had seen in his messages. I noticed the app on my phone open out of habit, just checking notifications. That's when I saw it. His location. It was moving. At first I thought it was a glitch. The dot on the map jumped from the city across the street to a part of town 5 miles away, then back, then across town again. I laughed nervously, telling myself it was just a bug in the app. But it kept moving, and the more I glanced at it, the more my chest tightened. He was sitting right across from me, talking, smiling, telling a story about some dumb thing that happened at work, but the dot kept hopping around like he was in 5 places at once. I tried to focus on him, tried to ignore it, but then my phone buzzed. A message from him. Only he was sitting in front of me, talking, smiling, holding a cup of coffee. I looked at the message. It said exactly what he had just said. Every single word typed out and sent. I stared at him, heart racing. The dot on the map kept moving. Back and forth, jumping over neighborhoods, streets, the river. All while he was still there, talking, laughing, pretending nothing was weird. I tried to brush it off as some crazy coincidence, but the more I looked, the more impossible it felt. My mind kept going over it. Maybe it was a bug in the app, a hack, something. But then the messages kept coming. Not just what he was saying. Descriptions of what I was doing. The way I crossed my legs, the small sip I took of my coffee, the way I absent-mindedly twisted my ring. All of it. I tried to put the phone down, tried to focus on him, on the conversation, but I couldn't. Every time I looked up, his dot had moved again. A neighborhood away, across the city, back in the building, right outside the coffee shop. And every time I blinked, the message arrived, describing me exactly. I left my phone on the table, hoping it would stop, hoping it was just some weird glitch. He noticed, looked at me, and smiled like nothing was wrong. I tried to smile back, but my stomach felt cold, my head light. After a while, I convinced myself to leave. I told him I had to go, though I didn't give a reason. He nodded, standing, smiling, walking out with me. The dot jumped again as we walked down the street, moving across town, then jumping to a park across the river. I kept my eyes on it, watching as it moved like a live thing, following us, predicting us. When we got outside, I saw something else on my phone. The map now had multiple dots, copies of him, scattered across the city in the exact positions he had been in the shop, in front of buildings, sitting at benches, walking down streets I'd never been. I stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, heart hammering. He kept walking toward me, close enough to see the little twitch in his eye, that same thing from the photo, and my phone buzzed again. Another message from him, sent while he was in front of me right there, talking. The message wasn't words this time, it was a picture. From the angle of the street behind me, showing me standing there, frozen, phone in hand, looking up at him. I looked around. Nobody else on the street, nothing that could have taken it. The picture was from my perspective, but not my phone. I turned my head slowly, trying to find where it came from. He smiled. Not a real smile, I realized. Something practiced, too smooth. Too perfect. I told myself I was imagining it, losing my mind. Maybe the messages were delayed. Maybe the dot glitching had some explanation. But the photos kept coming. Each one showing me from angles I hadn't noticed. Watching me, following me. I started walking faster. Tried to shake it off. Tried to ignore the phone buzzing. He kept pace with me, still smiling, still perfectly normal. The dot kept moving across town, jumping from place to place, following us, predicting us. By the time I reached my apartment, I was shaking, phone in my hand. Dot of the map still moving, jumping, hopping. The messages now full sentences about what I was doing, thinking, even about the drawer in my kitchen that I had left slightly open. Details I hadn't told anyone. Ever. I didn't answer. I didn't move. I just watched. The dot stopped finally, right on my building, my apartment. The door clicked behind me. I spun around. Empty hallway. Quiet. The sound of the elevator going down somewhere else. Nothing. I looked back at the phone. Another message. Short this time. Just his name. I dropped the phone on the couch. Heart hammering. And then I realized something. Even if the dot was a glitch, even if the messages were some crazy coincidence, there was no explanation for how he could know exactly what I was doing. Exactly. And I had been sitting across from him for over an hour, talking, laughing, trying to convince myself it was nothing. But I can't. Not after the messages describing my apartment, the angles of my furniture, the small habits I didn't even realize I'd had, the way I breathe when I'm nervous. He knows. I don't know how. I don't know if I want to find out. I left the phone on the couch, the dot blinking at my building, the messages waiting. I haven't opened it since. I haven't swiped on anyone new, haven't checked the app. And every time my phone buzzes, I feel it could be him. Or the dot moving. Watching. I remember swiping on her late one Sunday night, half distracted scrolling through the app while my roommate was watching some dumb show in the background. She had a few photos, nothing crazy, just a girl laughing at the camera in all of them. But there was something about the way she held herself that made me pause. I don't know if it was the tilt of her head or the look in her eyes, but it felt like she was daring me to swipe right. And I did, almost without thinking. We matched instantly, which I guess should have been a red flag in hindsight, but I didn't think about that. Our messages started casually, small talk, memes, jokes, nothing too heavy. She had this weird way of twisting normal things into something funny, but it was a kind of humor that made you pause and then realize she had nailed it. I told myself I was reading too much into it, just enjoying the attention. We decided to meet at a cafe downtown, one of those hip spots with exposed brick walls and low lighting. I got there first, the usual nervous energy building up, and sat at a corner table. I was scrolling through my phone, trying to act casual when she walked in. I swear she looked exactly like her pictures, laughing as she scanned the room. I waved and she came over, sitting down opposite me with that same grin. The date started normal, talking about movies, work, weekend plans. Everything felt ordinary. Then, halfway through, she laughed. It wasn't a big laugh, just a quiet chuckle, and I froze. I hadn't said anything funny. Not a word. I looked at her confused, and she smiled like it was obvious what I meant. I asked her what was so funny, and she tilted her head, leaned in a little, and said she thought I was thinking it louder. I laughed it off, a little nervous, trying to convince myself I misheard, but that laugh didn't leave me. After that, it started happening more. Small things, little thoughts I had but didn't voice out loud. She would laugh at them, or comment, or nod like she understood, like she was inside my head. At first, it was subtle. A chuckle when I pictured a joke I hadn't said, a knowing smile when I thought of something embarrassing. By the time the cafe emptied out, I was sweating without realizing it. Every glance at her felt like she was reading me, scanning my brain for the tiniest fragment of thought and reacting to it. I tried thinking normal things, thinking nothing, but it didn't matter. She laughed anyway, like she could give the tiny spark to my thoughts, like she was tracing every mental step I took. We left the cafe and started walking down the street. I tried distracting myself, looking at store windows, trying to focus on the city around us. She was still laughing sometimes, still commenting on things I hadn't said. Then I realized it wasn't random. She was reacting to things I barely even noticed thinking. Names of people from my past, inside jokes I hadn't shared in years, thoughts I thought I'd never say aloud again. By the time we reached the park near my apartment, my stomach was in knots. I kept testing it, thinking deliberately about random stuff. Silly things, personal things, things I hoped she wouldn't know, and every time she reacted. Always right. Always with that quiet laugh, that tilt of the head, the eyes narrowing like she was confirming she had just read me. I started walking faster. My brain was screaming at me to leave, to get away. But she matched my pace, calm, like she knew exactly what I was going to do before I did it. The entire time I kept thinking, how the hell could she know any of this? How could someone hear my thoughts? I tried convincing myself I was losing it, but every reaction, every laugh, every comment matched me exactly. Not like she was guessing, like she had access. By the time we got to my building, I was shaking. My hands were sweaty, my legs felt like jelly. I made some excuse to end the date, said I needed to get inside, needed to think. She smiled, leaned closer, and laughed softly at something I hadn't even thought yet. That laugh echoed in my head, a confirmation of everything I had feared. I went inside, slammed the door behind me, and just stood there. Tried breathing normally, tried to convince myself it was coincidence. But it wasn't. Not a coincidence. She had known things, small personal things, things I hadn't shared with anyone in years. Things I barely even remember thinking. I tried blocking her on the app immediately. Nothing. The profile didn't exist anymore. I tried calling, texting. No response. And that's when I noticed it. Every time I sat alone, I could feel it. That laugh. Not loud, not out loud, but in my mind, the faintest echo like a shadow. A reminder that she was still in there, still aware of the thoughts I tried to hide, still following the ones I tried to forget. I tried going about my life normally, but every time I thought a thought, every time I imagined something silly or embarrassing, there it was. That tiny echo of a laugh, confirming she knew, confirming she was still listening. I stopped swiping on the app. I stopped talking to new people. I kept my thoughts guarded, tried to empty my mind as much as possible. But it doesn't work. Thoughts slip out. She hears, she laughs. Weeks went by. I told no one. I couldn't. No one would believe it. How could I explain a person laughing at my private thoughts? The way they played with me without ever speaking a word aloud. And then I realized the worst part. I couldn't stop thinking about her. Couldn't stop her from existing in my mind. Every laugh she had, every tilt of her head, it was burned into me. I don't know what she is. I don't know how she does it. And I don't want to know. But I know she's there. In the corners of my thoughts, in the silent moments, in the things I didn't even say. And sometimes, late at night, when the apartment is quiet, I swear I hear that faint, knowing laugh echoing through my mind again. I met him on a Tuesday, scrolling through the app while half watching some stupid cooking show. His profile was simple, just one photo of him in what looked like a park, smiling at the camera. No bio, no extras. I swiped right mostly out of boredom, honestly, and then forgot about it until we matched a few minutes later. The messages started casually, nothing weird at first, just small talk and some memes. He had a dry sense of humor that actually made me laugh, and for some reason I felt comfortable agreeing to go to his place that weekend. I didn't know what I was walking into. When I got there, the first thing I noticed was how clean it was. Not just clean, but unrealistically clean. Like a showroom for a magazine spread, everything was perfectly arranged. No clutter, no personal items lying around, no signs of actual live. Even the kitchen looked like it had been sanitized for a photo shoot. I couldn't place why it felt wrong at first, but the more I looked, the more it hit me. There was nothing that made this apartment feel lived in. He offered me a drink, and I followed into the living room. The furniture was all minimalistic and coordinated, the lighting perfect. I sat down on a couch that looked more like an exhibit than something to relax on. He sat across from me, and I tried to focus on him, trying to ignore the uncanny perfection around me. At first, I tried to chalk it up to personality. Maybe he just really liked things tidy. But then I noticed the details. No books, no magazines, not even a laptop left out anywhere. There wasn't a single toothbrush in the bathroom, no towels hanging, no little signs of normal daily life. It felt sterile, like someone had moved in yesterday and hadn't started living yet. I started feeling uneasy. Not the usual first date nerves, but that creeping feeling that something wasn't right. I told myself I was overthinking it, but I couldn't shake the sense that I was being watched, not in the he's staring at me way, but in the this place was waiting for me way. Then I saw the photos. I was wandering toward the hallway, trying to calm my racing thoughts, when I noticed a wall lined with frames. At first, I thought they were generic art prints, maybe part of the stage decor. But as I got closer, I realized they weren't art. They were photographs of women, all standing in the living room, all in the same spot I was now. Some were smiling, some looking confused, some laughing. But all of them were positioned exactly where I had been sitting. My heart started pounding. I tried to convince myself it was just a coincidence, that maybe he had photographed friends for some reason, but the sheer number of them made that impossible. There were dozens of frames, each with a different woman, each taken in the same exact space, and some of the photos were recent. I could tell by the outfits and hairstyles, it weren't old, they weren't faded. I felt my stomach drop, my hands shaking. I looked at him, expecting some kind of explanation, but he just watched me. Calm, almost proud. There was no panic, no urgency in his expression, just that unnerving calm, like he had been waiting for me to notice. I wanted to leave. I tried to find my voice, tried to make some excuse, but I couldn't. I was rooted to the spot, staring at the wall. My mind started racing through every message, every laugh, every seemingly harmless comment from him. Every little detail now felt like it had been leaving me here, like this apartment, this showroom, had been set up for me specifically. I edged closer to the door, telling myself I just needed to step outside for a second, but something in me froze. My eyes caught a frame on a small table near the hallway. I recognized her, or at least I thought I did. She looked like she could have been me, if not for the subtle differences in hair and outfit. And then I realized the photos weren't random. They were all positioned with the same angles and lighting as if each woman had been told to stand just so. I felt bile rising in my throat. My mind was trying to process it, trying to figure out if I was overreacting, but the logic didn't add up. No normal person would frame dozens of women in the same spot of their apartment unless there was some sort of obsession going on. And the fact that it was happening now to me made it worse. Made immediate. He started talking, pointing out something on the table, but I wasn't listening. My eyes kept darting back to the wall. Each frame felt alive, like the women in them were frozen in time, waiting for someone else, waiting for me. I don't even remember how I got to the door. I think I stumbled, knocking over a lamp in my panic. It didn't shatter. It didn't break. It just slid across the floor like it belonged to the apartment, like the apartment itself was untouched by my panic. I threw open the door and ran down the hallway past him. He didn't move, didn't call after me, just that same calm, like I was the only one out of place. Outside, I gasped for air, my chest tight, my hands trembling so badly I could barely hold my phone. I didn't stop running until I was back on the street, past the building, past the intersection. My apartment never felt so safe, even though it was messy and lived in and full of my own clutter. I haven't gone back. I haven't messaged him. I don't want to know who those women were. I don't want to know what the apartment really is, what he really does. But sometimes when I'm lying in my own bed, I think about the frames, about all those women standing where I had been, frozen in time. And I can't shake the feeling that it wasn't random, that it wasn't coincidence, that maybe somehow it's still waiting. I met her late one night, swiping on the app while the streets outside were empty and quiet. Her profile was weirdly minimalist, just a few pictures, all taken indoors with dim lighting, and no bio. I almost swiped left, but something about the way she smiled made me pause. We matched, and the conversation started slow, casual, almost painfully normal. She laughed at the dumbest jokes, sent memes that were exactly my type, and somehow made me feel like I had known her forever, even though we were just exchanging words on a screen. After a few days, I suggested meeting up. She refused. Not in a busy way, but in the I can't. I don't do daylight way. Every time I asked about a daytime meet, she came up with excuses, always insisting that it was safer, more comfortable, better at night. At first, I thought it was just a quirk, something mysterious that made her more interesting. I didn't realize how dangerous it was until later. Finally, I got stubborn. I said I was only free during the day, and if she wanted to meet, it had to be in the afternoon. Surprisingly, she agreed, though she sounded hesitant. I told myself it was fine, that maybe she just had some weird schedule. I planned a coffee shop meetup around 3 in the afternoon, figuring daylight would keep things normal. I arrived early, nervously fiddling with my phone while watching people pass by. When she walked up, I felt the same pull I had online, like I'd known her my whole life. But there was something about her that was different in the sunlight. Her skin seemed almost luminous, too perfect, and the shadows on her face didn't behave the way they should. I chalked it up to the lighting at first, until I noticed the first window. We were walking toward a street lined with storefronts, chatting casually, and I glanced at the reflection of the sidewalk in the glass. I noticed everyone around us had reflections, except her. Nothing. She walked beside me, laughing at something I said, and her reflection didn't exist. My stomach dropped, but I tried to laugh it off, assuming I was imagining it. Maybe the angle was off. We kept moving, past more windows, glass doors, cars parked with their mirrors catching the sun. Every reflection I checked, hers was gone. I didn't say anything, pretending not to notice, but my mind was racing. Something about this was wrong in a way I couldn't explain. I tried to convince myself it was a trick of the light, a shadow I couldn't see properly. But every fiber in my body was screaming that it wasn't. We passed a small boutique, and I looked again. Nothing. I even glanced down at puddles from last night's rain, thinking maybe I could seek her in the water. Still nothing. And the worst part was that she looked normal, standing there next to me, acting as if nothing was strange at all. She was smiling, her eyes catching the sunlight, and my chest felt tight with a mix of fear and disbelief. I tried to change the subject to focus on casual things, but my eyes kept drifting back to every reflective surface. Each time, the emptiness where she should have been made my stomach twist. I wanted to turn around and walk away, but I couldn't. I don't know why. Something about her was magnetic, even as my brain screamed at me to leave. We reached a small park, and she sat on a bench, gesturing for me to sit too. I did, but I stayed on high alert. I scanned everything, the glass windows of the buildings around, the metal of the playground equipment, even my own phone screen trying to catch a reflection. Still nothing. And then I realized something worse. Not only was there no reflection, but nothing she touched left a mark. Leaves didn't move when her fingers brushed them. The bench didn't creak under her weight. It was like she existed in a different plane, brushing against the world, but not interacting with it normally. I wanted to stand up, wanted to run, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. The more I stared, the more I noticed the little things that didn't add up. Her shadow barely existed, just a faint outline that wavered unnaturally on the pavement. Her laugh sounded distant, echoing in a way that didn't match her mouth moving. It was like she was close and far at the same time, an impossible presence. I told myself I had to leave. I had to get away before something worse happened. I stood trying to make my movements casual, but she followed exactly, matching my pace. And then, as we passed a large office building with mirrored windows, I stopped dead. Her entire body was reflected in the glass, but it wasn't right. Her outline was wrong, jagged, like a glitch in a video. Her face shifted slightly as I blinked, features moving like she wasn't fully there. I stumbled back, my hands shaking, and she tilted her head, still smiling. I ran. I didn't even wait for her to react. I sprinted down the street, weaving through people, checking every reflective surface as I went. Cars, windows, puddles, polished signs. Everywhere she should have appeared, she didn't. And yet, I could feel her presence behind me, keeping pace without sound, without touching anything, without leaving any proof she was real. When I finally ducked into a crowded subway station, the crush of people around me gave me some relief. I checked my phone, trying to focus on something normal, anything tangible, but my heart was still racing. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting her to step out of the shadows. She never did. I never contacted her again. I deleted the app, changed my number, avoided walking down streets with reflective windows, and tried not to think about her. But every now and then, when I pass a mirror, I freeze. I check my reflection, looking for her, some sign that she's still there watching. And sometimes, just at the edge of my vision, I feel her, a presence that shouldn't exist, moving beside me in a world that can't hold her. I swiped right on him late one Friday night, just messing around while everyone else was out drinking or at parties. His profile was weirdly simple. One picture, no bio, nothing that gave away anything about him. Normally, I skip profiles like that, but there was something in his smile, the way his eyes caught the camera, that made me pause. I matched, we started talking, and somehow within an hour it felt like I'd known him forever. He said the dumbest things, the same kind of humor I liked, and it wasn't annoying or forced. It felt natural, like he could read my head without actually being creepy. We set up a date that weekend. He picked a low-key cafe that I'd never been to, tucked away between two apartment buildings. When I arrived, he was already there, sitting in a corner table with a coffee, looking exactly like his photo, but somehow sharper in real life, like my brain had underestimated him. The first hour went fine. Conversation flowed easily. He laughed at the little stuff. I laughed at the stuff that wasn't even that funny, and I thought, okay, maybe this could actually be someone I'd hang out with again. Afterward, as we were saying goodbye, he asked me not to delete the chat. He made it sound casual, like he just wanted to keep our conversation alive, which I thought was a little odd, but harmless. I nodded, told myself I'd leave it on my phone, and went home. That night, I didn't think about it much. I had other things to do, work and homework, and scrolling through TikTok until I fell asleep. The next morning, I checked the chat just out of curiosity, and my stomach dropped. Every single message I sent had been edited. Not slightly edited, but completely rewritten. Messages that had been normal greetings, jokes, casual observations were now sentences I would never type. Some of them were accusatory, mean, almost obsessive. I stared at my phone, convinced it was a glitch, or maybe my own memory playing tricks on me. I scrolled up, looking for the original messages, trying to remember exactly what I had written. None of it matched. I tried not to panic at first. Maybe it was a new feature of the app, a beta update or something. I searched online, looked for forums, anything about messages being edited without user input. Nothing. And then I noticed something worse. Every time he responded, his messages referenced the new versions of my messages, the ones I hadn't written. He was replying to things I didn't type, asking questions about stuff I didn't say, commenting on details that didn't exist. I closed the app, tried to shake it off, and focused on my day. I told myself it was probably a weird glitch, nothing more. But over the next few hours, I couldn't stop thinking about it. My mind kept going back to every message I'd ever typed that night. Each one was twisted now, rewritten into something I didn't recognize. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized some of the messages were things I hadn't even thought about loud. By evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I opened the chat again. This time, there were new messages from him, sent while I was staring at my phone. He referenced thoughts I hadn't typed, even thoughts I hadn't consciously had yet. It was like he was inside my head, pulling words out before I could even form them. I tried to delete the chat, but the app froze. The messages wouldn't disappear. The more I scrolled, the more impossible it became to tell which messages were mine and which were his manipulations. I tried contacting tech support, explaining what was happening, but they said there was no way the messages could have been edited without access to my account. I changed my password, logged out of all devices, and still, every time I opened the chat, it was like he had anticipated it. The messages continued to twist, reshape, become more personal, more invasive. It wasn't just words anymore. It was details, memories, things only I would know. I stopped sleeping properly. I checked my phone obsessively, afraid that new edits had appeared while I wasn't looking. My friends noticed I was acting weird, but I couldn't tell them the truth. They'd think I was crazy, and I was starting to think I might be. Every time I blinked, every time I set my phone down, I imagined him sitting somewhere with my words in his hands, reshaping them like clay, feeding off them somehow. A few days later, I decided to confront him. I went back to the cafe where we met, but he wasn't there. I tried messaging him, asking what was happening, and he replied almost instantly, but not on the app. He texted me on my real phone, from a number I didn't recognize, telling me not to worry and that everything was fine, that he just liked seeing my thoughts evolve. That's when I realized this wasn't just an app glitch. He had access to my account, my messages, and maybe more than that. Maybe he could read my thoughts, predict my words, twist them in real time, make me question my own memory. I stopped using the app, deleted it, wiped my phone, got a new number. I thought that would end it. But then, a week later, I woke up to notifications from an unknown number. Messages that weren't just texts. They were screenshots of conversations, edited versions of old messages, things I hadn't written yet. Every time I blinked, it felt like he was there, waiting for the next word, the next thought, shaking them before I could even send them. I started avoiding my phone altogether. I stopped talking about anything personal online, stopped using social media, and yet the messages kept coming in. Every notification made my chest tighten. Every vibration made me jump. I felt like my own words weren't my own anymore. They belonged to him, twisted in ways I couldn't undo. I don't know how he did it. I don't know if it's a hack, some kind of supernatural thing, or if I've lost my mind entirely. I only know that I can't trust my own messages anymore. Every word I type feels dangerous, like it could be stolen and reshaped by him in ways that make me unrecognizable. I live in fear that one day he'll show up, not just in my phone, but in real life, and the messages will just be a preview of what he's capable of. Every now and then I glance at my phone, my thumb hovering over the chat app icon. I tell myself I won't open it, that I'll resist. The curiosity is unbearable. And every time I do, every single message I sent, every little joke or casual greeting, is there, rewritten, twisted, alive in a way it shouldn't be. And somewhere I know he's reading it, waiting for the next edit, for the next word that isn't mine but will be soon enough. I met her on a Tuesday night when I was swiping out of boredom, one of those nights where I hadn't planned on talking to anyone, but she popped up and I just had to swipe right. Her profile was kind of blank, just a few pictures that didn't show much. No captions, no bio, nothing. But her smile felt familiar in a way I couldn't place. We matched instantly, and within an hour, we were messaging like we'd known each other forever. It felt effortless, the kind of conversation where you forget time exists. We set up a date for the next weekend. I told my friends about it casually, just mentioning that I met someone new. They were curious, so I sent them her pictures before we met. That's when the weirdness started. They all looked at the pictures like I had just sent a random stranger's photos. They swore they'd never seen her before, didn't recognize her in any social media search, and insisted that her face wasn't familiar at all. I laughed it off, thinking they were just joking or being dramatic. Maybe they were right. Maybe I just got lucky. The first date was normal. We went to a small cafe I liked, sat in a corner, and talked for hours. She knew little details about me, things I hadn't posted anywhere online. At first, it seemed sweet, like she was paying attention, but there was a weird edge to it, like she knew me better than I knew myself. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just intuitive. After the date, we started seeing each other regularly. I took a ton of photos with her, just silly selfies, snapshots at lunch, a picture or two in the park. Everything felt normal, at least on the surface. That's when the small things started happening. Friends continued to bring it up casually, asking if I was sure they were the same person. They swore that even the photos I showed them before, the ones on my phone, didn't look like her. I checked my phone, showing them the images again. They were the same, right? At least that's what I thought. But then I noticed one photo was missing. I swiped through the gallery and it was gone. I shrugged, thinking I must have accidentally deleted it. Over the next week, more pictures disappeared. First, it was the ones from our brunch date, then a few selfies from the park. I started to notice it only happened with her. Other photos on my phone were untouched. It didn't make sense. I backed up my phone, thinking maybe it was a glitch, but when I restored the backup, her photos were gone there too. My chest started tightening, the way it does when something doesn't add up, but you can't explain why. One night, I was scrolling through old photos to show a friend something unrelated, and I realized something horrifying. Pictures of her were just disappearing from my phone. They weren't appearing anywhere at all. On my computer, in cloud storage, in every app I used, it was like she had never existed. I searched her name online, hoping to find social media accounts, anything at all. Nothing. Just empty pages, broken links, nothing that connected to her. My mind was racing, trying to explain it rationally. Maybe she changed her name, maybe she never wanted to be online, maybe she was shy. But then why did she exist in my life at all if no one else had ever seen her? I started asking more questions when I was with her, casual stuff at first, like where she grew up, where she lived before moving here. She answered vaguely, nothing concrete, always brushing it off like it didn't matter. But the more I noticed the gaps, the more paranoid I got. I started showing her photos on my phone to see if she reacted. Pictures from other people's trips, random selfies of friends. Nothing. No recognition, no comment. She was a blank canvas in those images, like she had never been anywhere besides where I saw her in that moment. Then I started noticing her in photos from my past, from events she wasn't supposed to be at. I'd glance at a group photo and see a vague figure resembling her standing in the background. Every time I blinked, I thought I saw her somewhere I didn't expect. I tried talking myself down, telling myself it was coincidence, just my brain filling in blanks. But the more I looked, the more real it felt, like she had always been there, quietly existing, even when I didn't notice. One night, I woke up to a strange feeling, like someone was in my room watching me. I checked my phone compulsively and found that the last photos I had of her were gone. Every trace of her was vanishing faster than I could comprehend. I tried to pull her from memory, remember the details of her face, the curve of her smile, but it was like my mind was being overwritten, like someone was erasing her from existence in stages. Panic set in. I tried calling friends, asking if they remembered her, if they could help me confirm she was real. All I got was blank stares, confused faces, like I was talking about someone who had never existed. I stopped taking new photos with her, stopped keeping track of dates, stopped trying to prove she was real. But even then, my phone would occasionally show a glimmer of her image, a half-finished picture that looked like a memory I couldn't access fully. The more I ignored it, the more it felt like she was slipping away, dissolving from my life like smoke. I started seeing her in reflections for a fraction of a second, in windows and mirrors, but when I turned to look fully, she was gone. I asked her about it one night when we were sitting on the couch, but she only smiled and said it wasn't important. She said I worried too much, that she was fine, that everything would work out. But her reassurance felt hollow, like she was keeping me at the edge of reality, letting me grasp for something that didn't exist. I started documenting everything in a notebook, trying to hold on to her existence with words instead of pictures. But even then, I could feel her presence slipping, my memories failing to preserve her properly. Weeks went by. Friends kept insisting they'd never seen her, never met her, never had any record of her anywhere. I started avoiding social events, afraid someone would ask about her, afraid I'd be forced to prove she was real. My phone now contained no images of her at all, just blank space where memories used to live. I kept one old screenshot on my laptop, the last image I could find. It was blurry, distorted, but undeniably her. I looked at it constantly, trying to memorize every detail, knowing it was the last proof I had. One evening, I woke up in the middle of the night to my phone buzzing. A new photo had appeared in the gallery. It was her, standing at the edge of a park I didn't recognize, smiling like nothing had changed. My heart raced, my hands shook. I tried to call her, text her, but the number wasn't saved. No messages came through, nothing. The image stayed there for a few hours and disappeared as if it had never existed. I don't know if she was ever real. I don't know if she still exists, or if my mind is playing tricks on me, or if she was some kind of glitch in reality. All I know is that my memories of her are fading, and with each day it feels like I'll wake up one morning and realize she never walked into my life at all. The last image I kept is gone now, erased from the laptop. The only thing left is the echo of her presence, like a ghost living in the gaps of my memory, haunting me in the quiet moments when I should be asleep. I thought blocking him would be the end of it. I really did. The date had been a disaster from the moment I stepped into the cafe. He showed up late, wearing clothes that smelled like he hadn't showered in a day, and spent most of the time staring at his phone instead of actually talking to me. When he did try to engage, it was all off. He kept twisting every topic into something weird about himself, and I caught him staring at me in ways that made my stomach twist. By the time I got home, I had made up my mind. No second chance. I deleted the conversation, blocked his number, even blocked him on every social platform I could think of. Done. Finished. I went to bed feeling satisfied, like I had finally closed a door I shouldn't have opened in the first place. But that satisfaction didn't last. I woke up the next morning to my phone buzzing. I assumed it was a normal notification from a group chat or something. I grabbed it, and my heart dropped before I even unlocked the screen. There he was, back in my Tinder matches. Not just back, but active, like nothing had ever happened. His profile hadn't changed. The same photo, the same vague bio, the same smug little smile. I stared at it for a solid minute, blinking, hoping it was a glitch. I tried to swipe left, tried to block him again, and the app refused. Every time I tapped, it flickered and returned to him. My phone didn't freeze or crash. It acted perfectly normal otherwise, except for this impossible thing. I restarted it, deleted Tinder, reinstalled it, even rebooted my Wi-Fi. Nothing worked. He stayed there, mocking me silently through a digital doorway I couldn't close. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a weird Tinder bug, some account error. Maybe he had multiple accounts that linked back to me by mistake. But the more I looked, the more I realized it didn't make sense. His account was exactly the same. Same messages, same pictures, even the timestamps on the ones I remembered. I didn't respond. I didn't even tap on his profile anymore. I just stared at it, frozen, heart thumping, because it felt like a trap I couldn't escape. A few days later, I got a notification, a message from him, while I hadn't opened the chat yet. The phone buzzed, and a notification said the message came 5 minutes ago. I checked my block list. He wasn't there. I went to the chat, and there it was. Words I had never read before, and definitely never sent him. The tone was casual, almost like he was normal, asking if I wanted to meet up again. My hand hovered over the screen. I tried to delete it, block him again, even turn off my phone entirely, but nothing worked. The message stayed. I didn't respond. I didn't want to. I tried ignoring it, tried to convince myself that the app was glitching and that nothing could actually happen. But every morning I woke up, and there he was again like clockwork. Each time the profile seemed more alive, more aware of me. My phone started behaving differently around him. Sometimes it would unlock itself when I walked into the room. Sometimes the battery would drain faster than normal when I had the app open. Once, while charging, I watched the battery percentage drop from 80 to 20 in seconds just looking at his profile. I tried to log out, tried to create a new account, even considered throwing my phone in the lake, but every time the result was the same. He reappeared. He wasn't just a glitch, he was persistent. Watching, waiting. I started noticing him in real life too. Small things first. Someone walking behind me on the street that looked just like him. Glimpses in the subway reflection. Someone at the cafe where I usually had my coffee, but always disappearing when I blinked. It was impossible, but I couldn't stop seeing him. Then came the texts. Not just through Tinder anymore. My phone received notifications from apps I hadn't installed. Messages appearing on platforms I didn't use. They weren't from his name, just notifications that somehow connected back to him. One evening, my phone lit up with a calendar alert I hadn't made. It said, "See me tonight," with his face as the icon. I threw the phone across the room, and it didn't break. It didn't stop. I stared at it for hours, too afraid to touch it, and then it buzzed again with a new alert. Same message, same face. I started sleeping with my phone unplugged and away from the bed, hoping to break whatever pattern was happening. But even then, I woke up in the middle of the night to the screen lighting up on its own. There he was right there, waiting, smiling, like he never left. My entire apartment started feeling smaller, like I couldn't escape his presence. Windows and doors felt like thin barriers. I could almost hear the faint vibration of the phone from across the room, even when it was silent. I tried showing friends, screenshots, recordings, anything. But whenever I tried to prove it, the evidence vanished. Screenshots would corrupt, recordings would play back as static, and sometimes Tinder itself refused to load my account at all. When I finally managed to pull it up again, He was back. He never left. It became clear that I wasn't dealing with an ordinary person or even a normal app. Something about him had warmed into my phone, my life, my reality. I started avoiding my usual routes, avoided going out alone, avoided charging my phone in the bedroom. Every precaution made no difference. He was still there. One morning, I woke to find a message on the lock screen that said simply, "I'm closer than you think," with a timestamp for the middle of the night. I hadn't touched my phone since I went to bed. The battery was full. The room was dark. I don't know how it happened. It got worse. My app started behaving differently in general. Cameras would open themselves, microphones would turn on. Notifications would pop up with messages from him, even in apps I didn't associate with him. It wasn't random. It was focused, deliberate. Like he was aware of every move I made, every precaution I tried. I started sleeping on the couch to avoid my bedroom phone setups. I even tried a cheap burner phone to see if that broke the cycle, but within hours, a new notification appeared on that device as well, his smiling face again, waiting. I stopped using Tinder entirely. I uninstalled it, deleted every trace of it, even went so far as to factory reset my phone. I thought that would do it, but the very next morning, I found the app had reinstalled itself. No input from me, no prompts, nothing. And there he was, right at the top of my matches, smiling, waiting like nothing had changed. At this point, I stopped trying to fight it. I stopped trying to explain it. The profile isn't just on my phone anymore. It feels like it's in the room with me, in the air and in the screen, and the hum of the battery in every notification. I can't go outside without feeling him there, a step behind, always watching. I don't even touch my phone unless I have to. When I do, I brace myself because I know he's there, waiting for me to blink, waiting for me to feel safe, waiting for me to think it's gone so he can return. It's been months now. I have no evidence I can show anyone. Friends stop asking after a while. My phone is both my lifeline and my prison. He never leaves. Locking him does nothing. Deleting him does nothing. He's persistent, alive in a way I can't explain, tied to my world, tied to my life, and I can't stop him. I don't even know if writing this down will make a difference. It probably won't. But maybe someone reading this will understand. Maybe someone will know what to do. I can't block him again. I can't delete him again. He's already here, watching, smiling, waiting for me to blink. I thought it was just another Tinder date. Her pictures didn't lie. Well, not exactly. And she seemed normal enough over the messages, funny in a slightly off way, but not in a way that set off alarms. She suggested dinner at her place, said it would be more intimate, more casual. I thought, why not? I had nothing else going on that night, and honestly, the thought of a quiet meal in a real home sounded nice. The street she lived on was quiet, almost unnervingly so. Old houses, big trees that blocked the streetlights, everything muffled and still. I parked a block away, figuring it would be polite not to drive right up to the house. The closer I got, the more I noticed that her place didn't exactly look like a typical apartment or a house. It was too large, too symmetrical, like it had been built to impress or trap. She greeted me at the door smiling, but something about the smile didn't reach her eyes. It wasn't unpleasant, but it was deliberate, calculated. She took my coat, led me inside. The house smelled faintly of something sweet, like baked sugar, but with a metallic undertone I couldn't place. The lights were dim, soft amber from tall lamps in the corners, giving the whole place a warm, homey glow that made me relax too fast. We walked to the dining room, and that's when I saw them, her family. They were all seated around the table. I had assumed it would be a casual thing, maybe one or two people, her roommates or relatives. But there were 7 of them, all staring silently at me like statues. The silence pressed against me in a way I couldn't explain. The first thing I noticed was how familiar they looked. Not familiar in a generic sense, like people you see all the time, but familiar in a deep, uncomfortable way. Each one of them resembled me. One had my exact eyes, just older. Another had my jawline, just younger. A third had my hands, the way they rested on the table. And the resemblance wasn't small. It was impossible to ignore. It was like looking into mirrors that were slightly off, mirrors that had been twisted in time. The woman who had brought me here introduced them one by one. Not by name, just gestures and smiles. It wasn't normal. She moved around the table with a strange grace, her own eyes flicking to mine occasionally. I noticed the others never spoke, never moved except for the slightest breathing, always staring. I tried to find something human about them, something to anchor myself, but it didn't exist. They were just there, extensions of me, or maybe versions of me that shouldn't exist. We sat down. She served the food herself, careful portions on perfect plates. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, vegetables arranged neatly. The smell was intoxicating, oddly comforting, and I realized I hadn't eaten all day. I tried to make small talk about her, about work, about music, anything normal. But her family didn't respond. They didn't acknowledge me beyond the silent staring. Their eyes followed every move, every gesture, every bite I took. I started noticing little things, details that made my stomach knot. One of them tilted their head the exact same way I did when I unconsciously chewed. Another leaned back like I do when I'm bored, arms crossed, mimicking me without my realizing it. The youngest one had a laugh that sounded eerily like my own when I'm alone. Each mirrored me. Each reflected a fragment of me I didn't even know existed outside myself. The woman kept her attention on me, watching my reactions with this unsettling patience. I tried to eat, tried to act casual, but I couldn't. My hands trembled slightly. Every glance around the table, every flicker of movement, made my chest tighten. I noticed shadows in the corners of the room that shouldn't be there, shadows that didn't match any object or person. They flitted just beyond my vision, like the corners of the room were bending, reshaping themselves to focus on me. Then came the silence after the meal. I had assumed someone would talk, that some ordinary chatter would break the tension, but it didn't. It just stared. I felt compelled to speak, to ask questions, but my words wouldn't form. It was like my mouth and brain were misaligned, like my thoughts were being read before I could voice them. I looked at her again. Her eyes glinted, and for a second I thought I saw something shift, like a smirk or maybe a grin that wasn't meant for anyone else. Then I noticed the oldest at the table, the one with gray hair, leaning forward slightly. Their face was almost exactly mine, but aged and lined, with the same expression I wear when I'm angry or frustrated. I felt my stomach drop. Everywhere I looked, there was another me. Not exactly me, but unmistakable. The resemblance was uncanny, impossible to ignore. It was like staring into the future and the past all at once, trapped in flesh that shouldn't exist yet or should have disappeared. My pulse quickened. I tried to convince myself it was a coincidence, that maybe she had gathered people who just looked vaguely like me. But no, the resemblance wasn't vague. It was precise. It was deliberate. After what felt like hours, the woman excused herself to the kitchen. The silence didn't break. The family remained frozen, staring. I felt like I could hear my own heartbeat echoing against their silence. I wanted to leave, to bolt out the door, but every instinct, every part of me was paralyzed. I finally moved my hand slightly, and one of them mirrored it immediately, almost a second too late, but enough to know it was real. I pulled back, and they mimicked the recoil, perfectly synchronized with me. My stomach turned. My mind scrambled. What was this? Who were they? And why did they look like me? I tried to speak, to force a word out, but my throat tightened. I realized then that maybe they weren't waiting for me to talk. They were waiting for me to understand something I couldn't. The room wasn't normal. The house wasn't normal. The woman wasn't normal. And me sitting here, staring at these faces, my own faces, was exactly where they wanted me. When she returned, I realized she was holding something behind her back. I didn't see what it was at first, and she moved toward me slowly, deliberately. The air felt thick, heavy, like it was pressing down. I wanted to run, but my legs felt locked. Then she placed her hand on my shoulder, and I realized I couldn't tell if I was trembling from fear or something else entirely. I noticed one of the versions of me at the table had leaned forward slightly, almost as if inviting me to join them, to become part of this impossible family. I stood up finally and backed toward the door. Every movement I made was mirrored, repeated, a distorted echo of myself that followed me. I didn't look back. I didn't breathe. I opened the door, stumbled into the hallway, and kept walking until I was outside, in the cool night air, heart pounding, lungs burning. I never went back. I never tried to contact her again. But sometimes when I close my eyes, I see them. Silently staring, faces familiar yet impossible, waiting. I wasn't just meeting a family. I was meeting versions of myself, trapped and arranged in a way I can't explain, in a house that wasn't just a house, and a woman who wasn't just a woman. I never got their names. I don't know who they are. I don't even know if they were real or some reflection of a life I haven't lived yet, but I know the image of them will never leave me. I keep thinking about that dinner table, the silent faces, the way every movement I make now feels like it echoes in some unseen room somewhere with someone who looks just like me watching, waiting. I met him in a coffee shop downtown. He looked ordinary at first glance, like someone who had just wandered into the wrong line for a cappuccino. But there was something about him that made me pause, like a gap in the background of a photograph that doesn't belong. He told me he was new in town, that he had no past here, no history, no family, no one who knew him. He smiled, shrugged, acted casual about it, but I could tell he wasn't lying about being evasive. He didn't even have an address yet, just a temporary place, a friend's couch he said he was crashing on. We started seeing each other after that first coffee. Nothing too serious, just drinks, walks around the city, lazy weekends in parks. He was charming, attentive, funny in a dry way, and I found myself trusting him faster than I should have. Maybe it was because he had no history, no baggage, or at least that's what he said. Everything about him seemed built to be uncomplicated, but I started noticing tiny things, little slips that didn't make sense. He knew details about my life I hadn't shared. Not the kind you post online, but small things I had mentioned in passing or just thoughts I hadn't voiced. I chalked it up to intuition at first, thinking maybe he was just very observant. One weekend, I decided to explore the part of town near the riverfront. Old buildings, boarded up stores, little thrift shops that smelled like dust and mothballs. There was a wall near a bus stop plastered with missing persons posters, yellowed with age. I was walking past when something made me stop. A face caught me instantly, his face. The same sharp jawline, same crooked smile, same pale green eyes. My stomach dropped. I bent closer to read. The poster was dated 15 years ago. 15 years. It said missing from a neighboring city, a teenager at the time. The photo was grainy but unmistakable. Him, exactly him, just younger. I backed away slowly, my mind racing. How could this be? He claimed he was new here, had no past, yet there he was, a missing person 15 years ago. I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket, and I almost dropped it. No new messages, nothing. Just me staring at the poster, trying to convince myself it was a coincidence, some weird resemblance. But it wasn't. Not even slightly. Every detail matched. I spent the next few days trying to act normal, but everything felt off. I couldn't call him, couldn't text him, couldn't confront him directly. Something about the situation felt wrong, like opening the wrong door in a hallway that should have had only one exit. But curiosity gnawed at me, and eventually, I asked him about his past casually. He laughed it off, said he had been on his own for a long time, that some people just vanish for years before showing up somewhere new. Something about the explanation didn't sit right. It was too easy, too neat. I started looking into the missing persons case online. Archives, old newspapers, local forums. Every single source repeated the same thing. A boy, 15 years ago, vanished without a trace. No leads, no witnesses, no arrests. The age in the report matched perfectly with him if he had been 15 at the time. The photo matched perfectly. But the strangest part, his face hadn't changed. Not a line, not a wrinkle, not a shadow of age. 15 years, and he looked exactly the same. I tried to confront him again, this time more directly. I showed him the digital copy I had found, waiting for some sign of recognition, some flinch, anything. He smiled the same crooked smile and said he didn't know what I was talking about. I felt my stomach twist. The denial was calm, measured, like he had rehearsed it his whole life. There was no panic, no slip, no human hesitation. Just perfect, unnerving calm. After that, I started noticing other things. Shadows that lingered too long, reflections in windows that didn't match his movements, his silhouette in streetlights that sometimes seemed elongated or distorted. He would disappear for hours, sometimes the whole night, saying he had errands or needed to walk, and I never questioned it because he always came back unchanged. Always smiling, always the same. Like the missing poster had been a snapshot of eternity, and somehow he had stepped out of it 15 years ago without ever aging. I tried talking to people he claimed to know in the city. Friends, coworkers, neighbors. No one had ever heard of him. Not a single person. It was like he arrived yesterday, but with a memory he refused to share. Even the name he gave me, I checked every public record I could find. No birth certificates, no school records, nothing. It was as if he had materialized out of nowhere, carrying 15 years of existence, but none of its trace. One night, I followed him. I needed answers. He wandered through the city, moving as if invisible, slipping through streets and alleys without being noticed. I traced him to an old park near the river, overgrown and abandoned, where the streetlights flickered and the air smelled of damp earth. He stopped, looked at the ground, and for the first time, I thought I saw a flicker of something. Sadness, maybe, or maybe it was just a trick of the shadows. He never saw me watching. I stayed back, frozen. He eventually walked back to the street, but this time he didn't go home. He vanished into the darkness of the city, like he belonged there more than anywhere else. I waited, thinking maybe he'd return, but he didn't. I went home that night and couldn't sleep. His face haunted me. The poster replayed in my mind the thought of 15 years frozen in a single, unchanging form. The next morning, I checked my messages. Nothing from him, no notifications, but something on my phone made me freeze. A new photo appeared in my gallery. It was him, standing on my doorstep, smiling, holding a coffee cup. I didn't take the picture. I didn't open the door, and I knew, even before looking at the timestamp, that it had been taken that morning. I packed some things, tried to leave the city, but it felt like no matter where I went, I could see him in the corners of streets, standing in parks, always the same. He wasn't just unchanging in age, he was persistent, a constant presence, like a loop that refused to end. The missing poster made sense in a way I didn't want to understand. 15 years ago, he vanished. 15 years ago, he became untouchable, timeless, untraceable. And now, somehow, he had chosen to appear in my life. I don't know if I'll ever see him in the same way again. I try to convince myself he's just a coincidence, an uncanny resemblance with a story that doesn't make sense. But I know better. 15 years of nothing, then suddenly here, unchanged. The thought of it makes me sick, but I can't unsee it. He exists in a space where time doesn't apply, in a way I can't rationalize. I left the city, moved across the state, and I still see him sometimes. On newsstands, in parks, in reflections of glass doors. 15 years older, supposedly, but the same face, same eyes, same presence. I don't know who he is, what he wants, or how he has survived unchanged for so long. But I know one thing, he isn't new anywhere, and he never will be. I met her on Tinder, and right away she stood out, not because of her photos, which were fine, normal even, but because of the way she carried herself in messages. She was funny, sharp, and a little cryptic. I don't usually go for cryptic, but there was something addictive about her tone. When we finally set up a date, I expected coffee, casual conversation, maybe some small awkwardness, but nothing prepared me for what came next. We met at a small Italian place she picked. It had dim lighting, candles on each table, a quiet hum of conversation around us. I ordered a pasta, she ordered. Nothing. Just water. I thought maybe she was dieting or had already eaten. Whatever. Not a big deal. But as the night went on, she didn't touch a bite of food. Not a single forkful. She just sat there, smiling, laughing at my jokes, telling stories, listening. Her eyes were sharp, like they were watching me, but also something else I couldn't name. I joked about her not eating, thinking she'd laugh it off. But when I asked why, she just smiled and said she had already eaten. Before I got there. The way she said it, it wasn't casual, it wasn't joking. It was deliberate. I froze for a second, not knowing how to respond. Before I could process, she leaned back, eyes flicking over the table, then back to me, still smiling. Something in that smile made my stomach twist. It wasn't happy, it wasn't sad. It was like she was holding a secret that didn't belong to me, but somehow was about me. We finished dinner. I tried to shake the thought off, telling myself she was just weird about food, maybe had an eating disorder or something else I didn't understand. But as we walked back to my car, I noticed things. The way she moved, the way she tilted her head, the faint smell that came off her, not perfume, not sweat, something else. Metallic, like iron, old and cold. My stomach churned, but I tried to ignore it. Over the next few dates, the pattern stayed the same. She never ate. I would get her favorite dishes or suggest places I liked, and she would order water, tea, nothing. I started noticing that she would sometimes glance at the plate in front of me, her eyes tracking the fork as it moved from plate to mouth. Not in hunger, not in curiosity. It was something colder. I couldn't explain it. One night, we went to a friend's birthday dinner. Big place, loud and crowded. People eating, laughing, plates clattering. I watched her across the table. She didn't eat. She didn't even move like she was pretending. She just sat there, perfectly composed, smiling at the person talking, nodding, eyes occasionally flicking to me. I noticed it then, the way people avoided looking directly at her. Not like she was intimidating, just unsettling. Like she didn't belong, but everyone was trying not to notice. I started thinking about the first time she said she had eaten before I got there. The way she said it, the deliberate tone, the faint metallic smell lingering when she leaned in to laugh at something I said. I couldn't shake it. My dreams became weird. I would wake up thinking of her at the table, leaning in closer than she should have, and the faint sound of teeth scraping, just a whisper in my head, enough to make my skin crawl. I tried to bring it up gently, the not eating thing. Maybe she was sick or had issues, I told myself. She just smiled, same faint smile, and said she had it under control. But I noticed something new then. Her hands. She would rub her lips with her fingers after I took a bite, like she had absorbed it somehow. I don't know how to explain it, but it was like she was consuming me without touching my food, without touching me at all. It got worse. I started seeing it everywhere. Plates I had ordered, leftovers, crumbs, even just a piece of bread sitting on the counter. She would glance at it, and I would feel it disappear from my awareness. Not physically, but mentally. Like my brain had to forget it existed because she was there. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't want to seem insane, but I started avoiding eating around her, started skipping meals when she was around. My friends noticed, asked questions, but I didn't want to admit the truth. One night, we went to a small diner. She sat across from me, water in front of her, eyes tracking my fork. I ordered a burger, fries, everything I normally loved. I took a bite and looked up. Her eyes were fixated on me, but also not on me. Not really. Like she was seeing through me, past me, and into something I didn't want to be seen. I put the food down and started to feel nauseous. She leaned back, smiled faintly, and said she already ate. And then something clicked. I realized she didn't need to eat because she had already fed. On what? I didn't want to say it out loud, but the thought was there, and it was horrifying. I started noticing other people's reactions, waiters, strangers in restaurants. They would glance at her, then quickly look away, a flicker of unease on their faces. It wasn't fear exactly. It was recognition, like they remembered something or had glimpsed what I was beginning to suspect. She didn't belong in the normal world, not really, and I had been letting her sit across from me, letting her watch, letting her wait. I tried breaking up with her after that, claiming we weren't compatible, but she just smiled. Not sad, not angry. Perfectly calm, like she had expected it. She didn't argue, didn't fight, just let that smile lingering in my mind for hours. After she left, I noticed the faint smell in the apartment lingered. Metallic, cold, like iron in water. I couldn't eat for days. Every time I sat down, I imagined her watching, smiling faintly, having already taken whatever she needed. I stopped answering her messages, started avoiding places she might go, tried to reclaim normal meals, normal nights. But the thought never left me. Every time I sit down, someone new across from me. I can't shake the idea that she's still out there, still watching, still feeding silently, smiling faintly at me from the shadows of memory. I don't think she is human in any way that matters. Not exactly. And I don't know if she ever needs to eat, or if she's been eating something else all along, something I don't want to think about, something I can't unsee. Even now, months later, I smell it sometimes. When I open the fridge, when I pass a table in a restaurant, faint, metallic, just on the edge of my nose. And I remember that smile. The one that said she already ate before I got there. Not a joke, not casual, not harmless. And the worst part, I can still feel it, deep down like she's waiting, watching. Somewhere smiling faintly, always ahead of me. I had been on Tinder for over a year, half-heartedly swiping between boredom and mild curiosity. Nothing ever stuck. Most dates were awkward. Some were weird. A few were outright terrible. But nothing I couldn't laugh off eventually. It started to feel like a waste of time, like my phone had become a little black hole, swallowing hours I'd never get back. One night, scrolling through my matches, I decided I was done. Done with the swiping, done with the messaging, done with hoping someone would show up and turn all the noise into something real. I was going to delete the app and forget this whole scene ever existed. I sat on my bed, phone in hand, and opened the Tinder settings, my finger hovering over the delete button. I paused before I tapped it. The thought of erasing everything, my matches, messages, even the absurd little victories of a right swipe, felt final. That was the point, though. I was done. Deep breath. Tap. The app started the deletion process. I watched the screen, felt a small pulse of satisfaction, the end of something that had been more exhausting than entertaining. And then the notification appeared. You can't leave yet. You haven't met your match. I froze. My thumb hovered over the phone, eyes scanning the screen, convinced it was some weird glitch. I had never seen anything like that before. The tone of it was casual, almost playful, like the app itself had a personality, and that personality knew something I didn't. I shook my head and tried again. Closed the app. Deleted it from the recent apps list. Nothing. The notification popped up again, almost immediately, glowing on my lock screen. Same words, same calm tone. You can't leave yet. You haven't met your match. I thought maybe it was some glitch tied to my account, some automated message that refused to vanish. But there was no account anymore. I had uninstalled the app. I tried restarting my phone, hoping a reset would erase it. When it powered back on, the notification was there again. It didn't make sense. Phones didn't work like that. Apps didn't work like that. I started thinking back over the past year, the endless swipes, the conversations that went nowhere, the people who ghosted, the people I ghosted. And then I realized something. Every time I thought I was getting close to a date that felt normal, it fell apart in a way that felt deliberate. The weird timing, the odd coincidences, the last-minute cancellations, they hadn't been coincidences. At least, I didn't think so anymore. I didn't believe in fate, but I started wondering if this wasn't coincidence either. If someone or something had been guiding me along a path I didn't even know I was walking. The next few days I tried living like it was normal. I went to work, hung out with friends, scrolled through social media, even started a new book. But the notification kept appearing. On my phone, on my tablet, even my laptop if I checked email or browser notifications. Always the same message. You can't leave yet. You haven't met your match. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Some kind of software bug, some weird sync issue. But rationalization stopped working when the notifications started changing subtly. At first, the words stayed the same, but the font would shift. The colors would dim or brighten as if breathing, not static. Sometimes there was a faint shadow behind the letters, like something behind the screen, just beyond the glass. I stopped going out at night. I started watching my apartment, doors, windows, corners. Everything felt different. Not just different, wrong. Like the air itself had a presence, like I wasn't supposed to be alone. Sleep became impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw a vague silhouette, face obscured, standing just beyond the edge of vision, just waiting. The notifications started appearing even when the devices were off. They would flash on their own, sometimes the screen lighting up my room like a candle in the dark. Always the same words, but sometimes they whispered them too, soft and low, a voice that wasn't my own, rattling in the walls of my skull. I tried to tell someone, my best friend, my brother. No one believed me. Phones don't talk. Apps don't send messages from nowhere, right? I started doubting myself, but deep down, I knew it wasn't just in my head. That first notification had felt wrong in a physical sense, like touching ice water. And each time after, it felt like a hand gripping my chest, not violent, not fast, just firm. Enough to remind me I couldn't ignore it. The weirdest part was the way life started to bend around it. If I went outside, I would catch glimpses of the same shape in reflections. In a puddle, a shop window, a mirror. Just a vague outline at first, then closer, clearer. It wasn't a person I recognized, but it was watching, patient, waiting. I started noticing the timing. Every time the notifications arrived, that shadow moved closer. Not fast, but precise, deliberate. It was learning me, mapping me. I started obsessing over the idea of my match. What did that mean? Was it someone alive? Someone dead? Someone waiting somewhere I had never been? Was I supposed to meet them in person? And if I did, would the notification stop? I didn't know. I tried ignoring it. I tried leaving town, going to another city, leaving my phone behind. It didn't matter. The messages arrived again. On public screens, on signs, even whispered into my ears when the street was empty. Always the same words. You can't leave yet. You haven't met your match. Eventually, I stopped trying to fight it. I started waiting. I started following the notifications like a trail, seeing where they led. I started keeping my apartment dark, windows covered, because it felt safer somehow. But safe didn't last. Shadows would creep closer, edges of things bending wrong, rooms just slightly longer than they should be. I would wake in the middle of the night, phones glowing on their own, letters breathing, shadows leaning in over the light. Then one night, after what felt like weeks of this, I saw her, or it. A figure standing in the corner of my room, not hiding, not sneaking, waiting. Same silhouette from the screens. I couldn't make out a face, just a shape that somehow fit all the shadows I had glimpsed before. And then the phone lit up one last time, right on my nightstand. The message was different this time. Just one sentence. Meet me. I haven't deleted my devices since. I haven't gone outside after dark. I don't use the internet much, I barely eat, and every time I hear a notification chime, I flinch. The messages still come, different words now, sometimes urgent, sometimes patient, always waiting. You can't leave yet. You haven't met your match. And deep down, I know it isn't just a match on an app anymore. It's something bigger. Something that has been pulling me along this path for months, maybe longer. Something that knows me, knows my routines, knows my fears. And I know when it finally stops, when I finally meet my match, it will be the last notification I ever get.